Clinkety, clinkety, clink. Episode 2 of House of the Dragons in the books. Hello, it is I, David Lightbringer, of the golden blood of old California, the freehold of old California. That's where I'm from. Hey there, guys. So, Greyways Tim will be joining me just shortly. Girl Nettles is on vacation in a very nice place. I don't want to give out her location, but it is a tropical island. And speaking of tropical islands, how about the Stepstones? All right. How about who was that for some seafood? Little crab, little human meat eaten by crabs. I guess if you eat the crabs that have eaten humans, does that make you a cannibal? Hello, friends. Welcome to the House of Flying Dragons, where we'll always offer you a unique perspective. At least we don't have horrifically traumatic deaths to discuss this week. And if this is your first time watching a live stream with my bird, I have a bird. Her name is Cleo. And if you join the channel member Squishers, you can get access to custom emojis, including this Cleo emoji. And yeah, I need to make some new ones for House of the Dragon. I've got this Weirwood paste emoji, which used to be really funny. Now we need, there's probably a crab in there somewhere, but yeah, we'll have to work on that. So, hey there, guys. Oh, kind of quiet. Let me just double check my sensitivity. It was a touch low. How's that? Is that a little better? Thank you. All right. Always appreciate the feedback. So yeah, guys, I have to say my thoughts are a little scattered. The last episode I saw a month early. Oh, there's Mr. Tim. All right. So I've got Tim in here, and I'm just going to bring him in right away here. Hello, Mr. Eagle Eye Tim. Lower your camera so your head's on the same level as me. Otherwise, I'll feel like I'm talking down to you. Hey there, friend Tim. There we go.
All right. Everything good? We can hear me?
Yeah, well, let's talk a little more. Chat, let me know.
All right. Everything sounds good on my end. Everything good on your end?
Yes, it looks like you're coming through marvelously. All right.
Yeah, the wonders of going live immediately after is we're throwing a lot of trust in our equipment.
Oh yeah, no, Tim's a bit loud. Okay, so I'll turn him down a little bit. I've got sliders actually for this stuff, so I'll just point that at me a little more directly, and there we go. I took you down there, Tim, so you don't have to feel like you have to talk quietly. Feel free to let her rip. So yes, Nettles is on vacation. It'll just be me and Mr. Tim here, Greyways Tim. So I was just saying, a lot went on, a lot of character building. I felt like it was obviously a Rhaenyra-centric episode. So overall thoughts, let's just go ahead and give that. I thought it was very good. I started making some crab jokes right away because I'm this kind of guy I am, you know. I should have put on my Dick Crab. Oh, that's the joke. Yeah, I should have. Okay, well, there's still time. Yeah, so I made crab jokes, but overall, I thought it was a really good episode. I thought it was character building episode. Like I said, very much Rhaenyra, also Corlys, a lot of Otto Hightower. You start to see into the mind of Viserys and all the directions he's getting pulled in. I thought there was a lot more skilled storytelling where they're implying conversations that we didn't see that maybe happened off screen, particularly the Alicent and Viserys. Like, you can see that's been developing off screen, but they gave you enough clues to sort of fill that in so that, you know, when he announced who he was going to marry, it wasn't a total surprise for, like, the people who didn't know Fire and Blood, let's say. So, good character episode. A lot of Daemon Rhaenyra parallels that were interesting. I like the way they're building up the crab feeder. They're not giving us any, like, cheesy villain dialogue where they're sitting around talking about it. Like, they're just showing us these little clips of people getting eaten alive by crabs, and then while they're talking about it. So more good visual storytelling, again, kind of dreamy, not totally literal. You're seeing things that are happening somewhere else while the dialogue about the crab feeders going on in the small council. So very, very efficient movement of time and stuff like that. So those are my top of the line thoughts. I liked it. I thought it was a good episode. Enjoyed watching it. I'll look forward to rewatching it. I feel like there was a lot of subtleties with the looks, especially Alicent. I feel like I could take 20 minutes just studying all of Alicent's expressions and trying to read it. They are really going for it with, like, what's going on in her head.
Oh yeah. Like like with the crab feeder, they're definitely doing a lot of actions speak louder than words, because he's yet to have a single word of dialogue, but you already feel his presence and just like what he's about and what kind of villain he's going to be for this first season. And then very much like we're seeing a lot of along with the war of words like it's that we didn't get in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. We're getting a lot of subtleties, all the looks across the room, body language. It's all playing a very, very important role. It's saying just as much as the actual words are saying.
And I like how it's not always zoomed in too. You have to sometimes find it in the background, or there's multiple people, so they're not just like showing you the face going, and then you're like, oh, they're nervous, you know. So
yeah,
it's a little more subtle. Obviously, like, we all know to look for Alicent's hands by now and stuff, and that's telling you what's going on. But still, there's a lot of facial acting that's pretty. Somebody I was seeing in the chat earlier, like, Viserys is a mark. Like, yeah, well, you see what Daemon was talking about when he said you're weak, and all these, you know, this council is trying to manipulate you, and they're all this and that. Like, you could see exactly what Daemon's point was this week, couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something to play with that happens in real world history. Is occasionally you get a moment where the king isn't the most powerful person in the kingdom, that the king actually plays second fiddle to a lot of the lords or merchants and the people with money. And I think that's what they're playing up with Corlys, is where does real power really stand? Just as we've had Otto Hightower being like a good Tywin parallel, we also get a bit of that with Corlys, because even though he's not king, he is the richest man in the realm, and he has the backing of the Valyrian fleets. So he could very easily, if he wanted to, start his own rebellion and have backing and support and be able to himself back it financially. And he would definitely be able to cause quite a bit of damage if he really, really wanted to.
I thought they did a great job of, by the end of the episode, communicating. Like, because when the episode started, I was like, I'm not really feeling the ancient grudges of House Velaryon like I was reading Fire and Blood. But by the time they got through the episode, by the time he didn't choose Laena, you understood what an offense it was going to be. So now we're there as far as where Fire and Blood is, and communicating, you know, the bitterness of Velaryon. They've leaned more on the recent rejection. You know, I guess they're talking about Rhaenys and stuff. But like, yeah, they've gotten there now. Now we understand what a. But you also saw why Viserys did it too. It's almost like, oh, Corlys is getting a little too upjumped. Like, I better put him in his place so he knows I'm still king. Because if he had just gone along with Corlys, then Corlys is pretty much going to feel like he's an equal at that point. So you could see that line of argument too. Let me grab a couple super chats before they get lost. Wouldn't Viserys be worried about diluting the dragon blood? No, the Targaryens pretty frequently marry outside of the family. It's debatable about how they're thinking about that. And I don't know that Viserys is necessarily, like I said, super pro-dragon. But yeah, no, I don't think he's thinking that way. We've not heard him talk that way of anything about the blood or any of that. So Marvin Martin says, did Daemon summon Caraxes? I think we can assume so. The dragons have that psychic link, like I talked about in Lizard People. So yeah, if Daemon needs Caraxes, then Caraxes will be there. And by the way, in case you didn't know, why is Vhagar on top of the chat? That's old Nan Vhagar, and she's watching over the chat. I actually had Tim an episode opening video that I cut. So let me go ahead and just cue that so we can get an official launch of the episode here, and then we'll talk about Vhagar here in a second. Yeah, here we go.
Commander on the floor.
Oh, it looks like a Vhagar meme got into the end of our intro. All right, so I will put, where's Nanny? Let me get Nanny back. She's watching over the chat is the point. She's watching over to make sure y'all behave. And if you misbehave, then she will time you out or bop you with her umbrella. So I will have more Vhagar memes throughout the episode. The memes that were promised, they're coming. Just real quick, 2 more super chats, I believe it was. Dalton L said, just wanted to, glad you found the channel. Awesome. Lots of people finding the channel recently. Welcome, welcome. There was one above that, too. It just skipped over it. Where was that? Come on, YouTube. Don't lie to me. Why did Viserys tell Rhaenyra beforehand? Why didn't Viserys tell Rhaenyra beforehand that he was marrying Alicent? Because I think we've seen that this is a good entrance into that dynamic. We've seen that Viserys and Rhaenyra, they're only just trying to establish a little bit of communication. It's been pretty chilly for a while. And so they're not completely on the best terms to where, Rhaenyra is completely in his confidence. And yeah, I didn't know how Rhaenyra was going to take it. And maybe I wish Nettles was here. Maybe some ladies in the chat can speak up. Like, your dad's marrying your best friend. What's the dynamics there? Obviously, could be some weird tension, but Rhaenyra was pissed. I mean, she basically stormed out of the room after she was telling her dad, yeah, remarry, for sure. Yeah, that's cool, but not my best friend. So, she was not happy about that. And and the thing is, and it's obviously like, it's my best friend, but of course it's also court life. She's Alicent of House Hightower. She's definitely an eligible maid for the king to marry in the politics of the realm. But so she loved her friend, so she felt betrayed by. So do you think she was more mad at Alicent or Viserys? Why don't you tell me that, chat? Let's start with that. And Tim, what do you think about this?
Okay, well, they had that line when Alicent and Rhaenyra are at the Sept, and they have that. Alicent says that whole thing about my father doesn't understand the language of daughters either. So they're really setting it up that Viserys definitely has trouble communicating with his daughter, and that he is just like how he had the conversation with Alicent about how he wants them to be keeping those talks that they're having secret from Rhaenyra. Like, he's definitely holding, as much as he tells Rhaenyra that he wants to be open with her, that he wants her to learn, he's definitely keeping secrets from her. And that's him probably holding his cards too close to his chest and just really having trouble communicating with her. And the bombshell drops.
Looks like the chat is about 70-30 in favor of mad at Alicent more than Viserys. So she's mad at her friend for seeing her dad behind her back, essentially, right? Is that what I'm seeing? Yeah. Let's go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
But I was going to say, I think Rhaenyra was okay. Like, I'd come to terms with the prospect of her father remarrying, but with the idea that it was going to be to Laena Velaryon, because that's what she had saw when she saw her father walking in the courtyard with Laena, and then had that war of words with Rhaenys.
Yeah, I think the chat is right. As I see it, that makes sense. It's such a big thing for Alicent not to tell Rhaenyra that she's been hanging out with Viserys. Although I don't know how Rhaenyra didn't notice, but I guess we're supposed to, the line where they're like, oh, well, you haven't been telling Rhaenyra about our conversations, right? So there is some amount of secrecy we're supposed to perceive. Like I said, I would wonder how Rhaenyra wouldn't know. They're showing Rhaenyra as being somewhat politically acute and intelligent, so I'm not sure how she didn't pick up on it. But maybe she didn't understand that it was more than platonic, or that it was as frequent as it was, or what. And they're leaving us in the dark. We don't even know if Viserys and Alicent have been romantic. I don't think. Were they meaning to imply that they've been romantic? I mean, there's a little hand moment there, but it didn't quite look like they were, lovers that were hanging out. It looked like they were companions with tension. What was your read of that situation? What do you think's happened so far with those two?
Well, first I want to go back to what you said about Rhaenyra becoming politically acute. Now, I can see I think that what we're establishing here is someone who's becoming politically acute, but still has a lot of room to grow. Like the fact that she missed these signals about what's really going on between her father and Alicent. And we see that in that conversation she has with Rhaenys, where when she says to Rhaenys, like, if you're trying to make me angry, you're failing at it, when we can see on her face, like, no, you're angry. She got under your skin. So it's definitely showing, like, this is someone who's just learning the game. Like, the game has begun, you're just learning how to play, and unfortunately it's a game where you gotta where you learn as the game goes on, like because there is no set of established rules, and to play the game is to play dirty. So I think it's just really to show that, like, as acute as Rhaenyra is right now, she also has a lot of things to learn, like, and I think that's what they're showing. It's like she's gonna pick up on things, but there's also gonna be a lot of things she's gonna miss.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. We're supposed to see that, like, yeah, she's not like all of a sudden the wonder kid where she, all of a sudden, oh, she's a master political operator, but she is beginning to assert herself. And she did have some skill in the scene with Daemon. So yeah, I think that makes sense. That's probably true. Do you have a microphone sensitivity you could turn down a little bit? It sounds like it's overdriving just a touch. I can master volume it over here, but it sounds like it's being overdriven a little bit on your end. So Gabe the Griffin says, look at Otto holding Alicent's hand and tell me that she can say no to her father, y'all. Come on. Yeah, the Alicent debate. Boy, I'm glad I made that Alicent video. I knew this was going to be a thing. Jenny of Old Stones, let me just read these real quick, Gabe, and I'll come back to the Alicent thing. Rhaenyra would know that Alicent has no choice in the matter. I think she's angry at her Papa Dukes. I think eventually she'll realize that, but I think she has a right to be mad that she kept it a secret from her. That would be the thing that she's mad about, not necessarily about the choice. She'll come to terms with the choice, but the secrecy she didn't appreciate. And if you look back at the conversation in the Sept, Alicent is like sort of talking to her as if she's just a neutral advisor on her relationship with her father, when she's actually having these conversations with her father. So this is why some people begin to see Alicent as a little duplicitous or deceptive, because she's sort of presenting a different face to different people about what's happening here. Now, of course, the point that Gabe's making, hey, girl Nettles, what's up? Are you enjoying your vacation? She's in the chat. But that's the thing about Alicent is, of course, it starts off with her being put in the situation by her father, and she's making the best of it. So the thing is, when you say Alicent is Two-Faced, just remember that literally everyone in the show is Two-Faced. Everybody has a face that they show at court, and a face that and then their own thoughts. Like, only the kind of the most naive or emotional characters are kind of always telling you what they think. Most of these characters have public faces. And I think that, again, we have to go back to the gender thing. Women in society like this absolutely have to have a mask that they can put on to hide their thoughts. So, you have to remember that too. Let's not single out Alicent as the only one that's playing politics and stuff like that. So yeah, Roberta says Rhys Ifans and Alicent's little voices are so good. Yeah, they have nice little whisperings and little voices that communicate a lot. I like that comment. Cleo's licking the comments on. She's licking this. She likes to lick the screen. So as the chat misbiased, you guys can't see it, but you should feel a giant cockatoo tongue mashing down on your comments as you type. In a certain sense. Okay, I think I missed one super chat. Let me just go back. I loved the deep Valyrian lore we got this episode. Yes, there was some good Valyrian lore. So first of all, Daniela, welcome to Squishers. I liked the fact that, so in the books, Laena as a girl is supposed to be like enthusiastic dragon rider and like fiery and stuff like that, right? And when she's told that Viserys didn't choose her, she's like totally fine with it, and she's like, "Oh, I'd just rather ride my dragon," which is Vhagar, by the way. So I love the way they're building this up. Okay, so Laena, the first dialogue we get from Laena, she's asking about Velaryon. So maybe I think it was either the first line of dialogue or the first line of I think it was the first line of dialogue. Forgive me if I'm wrong about that. I think it was. And so it just shows you that, like, she's got an interest in behind the scenes. One real quick. There you go. I wanted to get that logo up. Sorry, you saw my windows. It builds her, like, it shows us, like, she's got the curiosity about dragons. And when Viserys says, "Oh, well, when Velaryon died," and then she's like, "Well, what about Vhagar?" And so that doesn't mean that Vhagar came from Valyria, but Vhagar is so old and legendary, and she's associated with the conquerors, that it's like, oh well, isn't that kind of like a last gasp of Valyria? So they're building up the to this moment when Laena obviously will claim Vhagar. Sorry if that's a mild spoiler, but that's like in the art and stuff. And it's sorry if that's like a huge spoiler, but that's what they're setting up. And it's literally I've used art on the cover of my videos with that. So I hope no one's offended by that. I am sorry. I do try to keep Fire and Blood spoilers contained, but in any case, I like the way they're setting it up with her asking about it, and then they're talking about Vhagar's out there on some island in the Narrow Sea, maybe, we think, and she might be lonely. Even dragons get lonely. I mean, I almost cried. I didn't cry, but that was touching. I enjoyed the Vhagar moment. So what did you think of the dragon lore and the Valyrian lore that we get? There was more, but what did you think, Tim?
Well, the first one I picked up on is when he's showing her the models, and when he talked about the blood mage, like the building that was supposed to be for the housing the blood mages of old
Hell
Valyria.
Yeah.
And like me being, that me being the guy who's like really interested in the Far East and Ashai and stuff, like my spidey senses immediately went off. It's like, wait, did he say blood mages? And I love like the little bit of world building they're setting up with that, because if we're going to start getting more shows built out of this, like we get 10,000 ships with Nymeria, then we are going to see old Valyria. So I think like it's nice that they're already planting little seeds for the possibility of further shows coming up. That's some really great way of world building. And it's like, see, like, so when if these new shows get off the ground, we have a point of reference to go back to and be like, oh yeah, they mentioned that back in House of the Dragon. Like when we see Viserys' scale model of the city, and it'd be really nice if we do get that show and we see Valyria, if it is like, if Viserys' model ends up being more right than he thought it was, and like it actually like is scale.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think they're definitely, they're really leaning into the Valyria stuff. So I guess the thing I want to say is hopefully they're leading to a Valyria show. But even if they're just setting up other Targaryen eras, it makes sense to get into this. Because, like, what the hell are the Targaryens supposed to be talking about? Like, Valyrian shit, obviously. Sex with lizards, strange dreams, frescoes about sex with lizards. You guys noticed that, right? I put out the lizard people video, and then they gave us an episode full of frescoes of people. There's one where the woman is kissing the dragon. She's kissing it on the lips. And there's other ones where the dragon's body is coiled amongst the orgies. That's how you get lizard people, folks. I just want to say that. So look, this is a good point to talk about canon for a second. I oversold something, and I want to clarify it just because I want to make sure everybody's clear on this. So George has given an interview recently, and I swear I'm not going to get lost in the weeds on this. I was kind of saying that House of the Dragon, the show, because George is so involved in it, that it's basically canon with the books. So, for example, when we heard about Aegon's prophecy, we know that came from George. And so it's like, okay, well, we can think about the book canon and Aegon having a prophecy. And that's true, because it came from George. However, the idea that the prophecy was passed down from king to king is something that Ryan invented. And they've said that in the interview. So that, for example, would not necessarily be book canon. So we're kind of back to where we were with Game of Thrones, but kind of better. Meaning that the stuff we see on the show may or may not be canon for the books. We shouldn't look at everything that we see in the show. Like, so when Viserys talks about the Blood Mage's Tower and stuff like that, Ryan probably made that up. But here's the thing, okay? Ryan is the prince that was promised. Ryan is as big as a George fanboy as any of us. And his heart's desire is to make this feel as much like A Song of Ice and Fire as possible. And that's why you see them going back to all this prince that was promised stuff. Even though the Game of Thrones conclusion did not make use of the prince that was promised and all that. So when I saw them building that up on House of the Dragon, I said, oh, they're building it up for George's ending. No, not necessarily. We should look at it more like each adaptation of the books is its own attempt to be close to the books. Now, George has said that all the shows, they're going to maintain a cohesive canon. So they're not going to say stuff in this show about a fact of history that changes something that we've seen on Game of Thrones. And when they make other TV shows, those are going to agree with this show. But I think we can enjoy House of the Dragon in a much... so what we're really talking about is like cave paintings, okay? On Game of Thrones, you guys all remember the Children of the Forest cave paintings, and they looked like eclipses and suns, and the White Walkers made spirals, and then in the last season they made a spiral with corpses on the wall, and I went crazy trying to decipher the spirals and the symbols because it looked like it was tying into book theories. And then it was like, no, that was just some cool shapes that Dave and Dan used. And it was completely like, So the thing is that we're not quite in that bad of a situation because Ryan isn't freelancing. He is faithfully adapting A Song of Ice and Fire. And Ryan, most importantly, is consulting with George actively as he designs this stuff. So when he thought about Valyrian blood mages and all that, he probably called George and ran it by him. But we don't know that for a fact. And George is not ultimately in control. He doesn't have final control over this. It's an HBO thing. He has a contract. Ryan has creative control here, Ryan and Miguel. So I just want to be clear about that. I will always attempt to try to parse that out as clearly as I can so that we can talk about book stuff and what the implications are for what we see on the show for the books. But so in this case, I just want to say the dragon lore that Ryan is making up, or that Ryan is making up with George, whatever that is, it seems pretty good so far. Like, I like the idea that the dragon egg is kept in a warmer. They've got like a stove pot with some coals in there that the dragon keepers carry. This is great to me. Or just the idea that the prophecy was handed down. That makes perfect sense. If Aegon had a prophecy about the long night, like, wouldn't he tell his descendants? It makes sense. So it may be that George will be like, oh, that makes sense to me too. I like that. And we'll find out in the books that that is the case too. And we know that, like, Rhaegar was reading prophecies, and King Aerys the First, and Egg, and Daeron the Dreamer. I mean, we know that a lot of Targaryen kings were definitely reading prophecies about the long night and having dreams about the long night. So that is just so I hope everyone's clear. House of the Dragon, close to the books, but with magic lore canon, we will have to parse it out and maybe listen to the interviews after the show and try to figure out, how much we can depend. But ultimately, like, we need Winds of Winter to tell us about what the books are doing. So I do love the way that they are developing Valyria. Now, this is the kind of thing that I would think George would be asked about most if I'm Ryan Condal. Like, don't you, Tim? Like, if you're Ryan Condal and you're a fanboy and you're writing the show and you're like, okay, I'm going to talk about the blood mages. Like, isn't that the thing you give George a call? I'd be like, what do you think about the blood mages in a tower where they practice their arts? I'm assuming the blood mages, like, control the volcanoes, right? Because that's not said, it's implied. So...
Yeah, like you said, I can only speculate on what's going behind the scenes because I don't know anything about contracts and deals and all of that. But given the mutual respect that George and Ryan and Miguel all seem to have for one another, I'd like to at least think that if Ryan comes up with an idea that's potentially so plot affecting and something that could potentially also affect future shows that are in the works, that he would run that by George and at least get some kind of seal of approval before stamping it in and saying, okay, this is canon now. Because George himself doesn't, as far as Fire and Blood goes, it seems like he hasn't really picked what the true telling of Fire and Blood is. And I think George is embracing the murkiness. The way that Fire and Blood is written, since it's written from a maester who we've already established has maesters who have their own agenda, from different sources that give wildly different accounts of events that happened. But that reads like real world history. So much of what we know as accepted history may not actually be what happened, because we're taking it at faith that the sources that we get it from are telling the truth. But I'm sure we've all heard that line about history is written by the winners. Like, I think we can all agree, like we've all at least heard that line sometime in our life. So I think George is embracing the murkiness of, like, this is one thing that could have happened, could be another. But for the point of the show is as an adaptation for the show, it's like, well, no, we can't really play like that. It can't be a choose your own adventure like the book kind of reads at times. We have to pick an event that happened and say, this is what happened, this is where we're going with it, and then this is going to be the effects of that event.
So that's actually a perfect follow-up to the conversation about Canon. George specifically said when he wrote Fire and Blood, he did not decide which thing was true. He just made up several versions of each event and then wrote that. So he doesn't know whether Criston Cole or Rhaenyra propositioned the other to run away. Like, he didn't decide. So what he said is that Ryan and Miguel are going to have to decide when they do the show, because they're not giving you 3 realities, they're giving you 1 reality. So the show is not necessarily like the secret truth of Fire and Blood that George had planned, and he's telling them, oh yes, what I really meant was that this actually happened. It's all like George wrote it in a fog of history, like he wrote it in a fog, as a fog. So he didn't, so that's what I'm saying, like, we should, for the most part, just enjoy House of the Dragon as its own show for what it is, and not try too hard to coordinate it with stuff outside of the show. However, I think that we can trust the show, and that's why I titled my video about trusting the show this week, because Game of Thrones broke our trust. That was the problem. Once a storyteller has broken your trust, you don't just sit back and enjoy the details. You question everything, like, why did they do that? That doesn't make sense. I don't like that. And then you're not really immersed. It breaks the immersion. So when you trust a storyteller, you're immersed in the story, and when something happens, you don't stop to decide whether or not you believe it. You're just like, oh, that's what happened. And the story reels out to you, and you have opinions about it, but you're not critiquing the choices as it goes. So I think that the storytelling on House of the Dragon that Ryan is doing with George's help and Miguel's help, and I know there's a writer's room. I keep saying Ryan. I should learn the other names. There's several writers. It's one of the improvements from Game of Thrones. It's not just 2 people monopolizing it. There are multiple voices of multiple genders and perspectives. But I think that we can trust the show because I am seeing high quality storytelling, and also because I'm seeing Ryan being pretty dedicated to making this feel like a Song of Ice and Fire. Yes, they're going to have to do their own thing here and there, and they're obviously going to invent stuff. But yeah, I think we can trust it, and if they break our trust, they will, and I'll let you know if that happens to me. But for the most part, that's why I made that video and showed like the techniques that they're doing, because I think those are the good signs that they'll be able to continue to tell us a good story. So, there was a super chat up. Oh, this was a welcome to Squisher. Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Like, they definitely hit the ground running. I'm very impressed with what they do, but like you said, we're taking it on good faith that they are going to continue doing things the way they are, that they're going to continue having a good working relationship with George, that they're not going to pull a D&D and leave George like hanging out to dry and waiting in the wings, and that there's going to be like a cutoff in communication the way there was after season 4 of the original show. So,
George talks about that so much. He's clearly like kind of like his feelings are hurt. It's like they stopped asking for my advice, and I don't know why they did that.
Yeah, and they cut out so much of his story because we don't get Vhagar, we don't get Arianne. There's so much ground that could have been covered that was just wasted. Like, if I was in George's shoes, I'd be pissed too. I'd be pissed.
So let's go with let's do a little segment, Tim. Let's do a little hero and villain of the week. Okay, I'll give you a second to think about it because I've just been thinking about it for the last 60 seconds. And by the way, I see a lot of accent talk. It does Mysaria's accent does seem to be French or French Caribbean. maybe a little New Orleans patois, something. I'm not a linguist, but that's seems to be what most people's opinion is. Hero. So my hero of the week is Rhaenyra. I think she showed heroism because she took initiative and she prevented violence. And the kind of the big failure of this story is like they let a war break out. So when people take actions that smooth tensions and prevent violence, that to me is actual heroism. So Rhaenyra is my hero of the week. And also just as a character, she was the most powerful. And then my villain of the week, I'm going to go with a little bit of a... Oh, no, I won't say... I was... Okay. I mean, it's hard to displace Otto. He just sits on the throne of villain of the week, okay? He's the worst person. He's with Alicent, his manipulation, his lying. But I will say that Corlys played the narrative role of a villain, even though I agree with... Obviously, like, they needed to do something about the crab feeder. Corlys was right about that. But as far as the way that the story functioned this week, he did play a little bit of a villain role. And you could see it ended with him in that conversation with Daemon in front of the fireplace. Like, that was a villainous scene in a sort of narrative way. I'm not judging Corlys. Everybody's going to have their moments. And that's why I say of the week, because every week it's going to be different. So I thought that Corlys was a great villain. In the sense that, like, he was intimidating, he was disruptive. You start to lose track of what he's going to do, and you stop trusting a little bit that he's stable. So I think that was I just want to take a minute to spotlight the performance, because it's good acting performance by Steven. Lots of acting compliments to go around in this episode. I mentioned Rhaenyra as my hero. Millie Alcock's acting was terrific. A lot of close-up stuff on her face. Just try imagine to act, when I know that they zoom in or whatever, but just when the focus is so close and you've got to carry the whole performance with just your little facial movements. Millie's been doing a lot of that. And so has Emily Carey, the actress who plays young Alicent. So a hero and villain of the week, and feel free to comment on my takes real quick if you want to as well.
Hero of the week, I'm actually going to give to Laena Velaryon, because that scene, that is...
And you started off, you in the chat today told me, like, oh, I don't stand Laena,
Oh, no, it's not that I don't stand Laena. It's that I'm not a stan of really any character. The problem is because, so I went into this episode avoiding the leaks, so I watched it with fresh eyes.
Same.
Except for that one scene which had been making the rounds, and I had seen the discourse on Twitter, and Twitter is a cesspool, and the problem I was seeing is some people's problem with the scene, one, because of how uncomfortable it is, and the thing is it's supposed to make you uncomfortable, and it's like, for how uncomfortable you are, look at how fucking uncomfortable Laena and Viserys are with the whole situation. And then there's the idea that people are saying, well, it makes Rhaenys and Corlys look bad. And it's like, yeah, of course it does. When you, and me and you I had this conversation with you, when we were preparing for the day. It's like, yeah, when you play the Game of Thrones, you're going to get your hands dirty. And I feel like some people, not all, but some people who really go gang-ho for these characters, they make the mistake of placing them on a pedestal.
You mixed gung-ho and gangbusters, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, when I get excited, I flub words. So
no, that's good.
Apologies if I do that, but I think they're putting Corlys and Rhaenys on a pedestal. But the thing is okay, we can agree that Rhaenys should have been queen, but that doesn't make her perfect. That doesn't make her a morally perfect character. She's going to make mistakes, and she's going to do things that are squick in this case, because that's how you play the game. It requires you to do terrible things. Now, for at least with Rhaenys, they gave that characterization because when she's having the conversation with Rhaenyra, she admits, she's like, yeah, I don't like that I'm having to serve my daughter up. But this is how the game is played. This is how the world works. This is how you advance. And it's such a horrible thing to place on the shoulders of such a young child. So that's why I'm placing like Laena as the hero, because she's the one who's ultimately dealing with this. Because if Viserys didn't make the decision that he did, if he did decide, okay, I need to seal the breach with House of Velaryon, they've been snubbed, and I need to heal the rift between us, and he did take Laena to wife, Laena's the one who's going to have to deal with the ramifications of that, because she's the one who's then going to have to bear his children at a very young age, which is heavily implied to have been the thing that caused Emma to have such difficult pregnancies.
So, yes, yeah, absolutely. That's I like that pick, Tim. I do think she showed heroism. She took it on courageously. You could already see like she's not a shrinking violet. She's showed some initiative in the conversation there, asked the king questions, and she leveled with the king when the king was like, okay, what did your mother tell you to say? She didn't like prevaricate. She was, she's like, okay, we're talking straight here. So yeah, I thought that it was a strong start for Laena. And of course, Laena's a character we all got our eyes on to see how they develop. So, yeah, I definitely think that was good heroism. And obviously, a lot of calls for Alicent as the villain of the week. Alicent did also play a villain role this week, much like Corlys did as far as like cinematically. And when I say that, and again with Corlys, it doesn't mean I'm judging Corlys's actions. Like I said, it was more, you could call Viserys a villain because he was failing as king to protect the realm. Corlys had a good point. Like, I sided with Corlys in that general debate. But Alicent playing a narrative role as a villain with the secret keeping, with glances and all that stuff. So you saw a three-way thing. The Maester Hightower thing is real. I don't know if there's a grand Maester conspiracy, but there's no doubt that the Maesters and Otto are working together, and we're supposed to see that they're giving each other visual clues. Like, the Maester says his bit and looks at Otto and, like, nods, like, all right, now it's your turn. And then Otto's like, and he says his line. So they're clearly doing a 1-2 on Viserys. And you can see they're even taking different sides of an issue almost to sort of surround him and hedge him in. So it's a real game that they're running on him. And this is the shit that Daemon wanted to protect Viserys from, right, Tim?
Yeah, because when Mello says his piece about, about all the benefits to marrying Laena, but then he gives Otto that look, it's like they rehearsed it, like that's the impression you get. It's like, okay, you got to play it up to, like, you can't immediately dismiss Laena Velaryon and say no, marry Alicent. You gotta make it believable, make it work, and they do that by playing strengths to Laena, but then it also comes back to Viserys' own problem with it, which is the age gap, how young she is. And I think, like I had said, relating back to Emma, like recognizing like what just happened to his wife and how taking such a young girl, and then even if you're waiting till she comes more of age, if you impregnate her as soon as she's able to be impregnated, like, you're running a great risk. And he's like, no, I don't want to go down this road again. So I guess for me, like, villain, it's so hard to not continuously name Otto Hightower to be the villain of the week.
Let me pause you real quick. I want to respond in the chat while we're here in the conversation point. Larry Strong, very good scene with him. He'd just been sort of another dude in the council chamber up until that one-on-one conversation. We can see the actor's got it very strong. It's got his own little mannerisms and his own... It feels like a very realized character very quickly. But so everyone's... he asked... They made so much out of him giving him a straightforward opinion that I have to assume it was not a straightforward opinion. Like, he's like... He kept saying, oh, just tell me what you really think. Give me that. He's like, oh, you want me to... Okay, I'll tell you. And then he presented a very honest face. But, like, the Strongs, Lyonel. Larry Strong is the son. He's not in the show yet. Thank you for correcting me. I'm bad with names. Please always correct me. Tim, interrupt and correct me if I say names wrong, because I don't want to confuse people further. Lyonel Strong. He's what I was trying to say is, do you trust him? Do you think he was like presenting an honest opinion there, or do you think he's in on the game as far as talent? Because he was for Laena too.
The impression I get from Lyonel Strong is that he's giving Viserys his honest opinion.
Okay.
Because, and we got to remember, like, Lyonel Strong, we haven't gotten much characterization from him yet. I mean, we're only 2 episodes in. We've yet to be introduced to his children. Like, his point where he starts becoming a real power player has yet to happen. So we only have this little bit to go on. But just given from the little bit we've seen, I think he was giving Viserys his honest opinion. Now, again, like I've said, if when we get more episodes, if I'm wrong, I'm going to admit when I'm wrong. But as it stands right now, that's where I'm placing Lyonel. I think he was being straight with him.
So Schmeckler Swifty in the chat says, New Squisher, that there was some side eye. So this is one where I think I want to rewatch and see if they're giving us any clues, because he definitely seemed honorable. So he either is honorable or that's a mask, and that's what I was trying to say. This is definitely one where I want to look on the, his son, the Clubfoot, is obviously like he's a Varys. That's right, Varys, not Varys or Varys or whatever you want me to say. Varys. I like to say Varys, and I will continue to say Varys. Lares is a Varys type character. So, what do you want to say? Laris Strong? Is that what you guys say? Didn't you Anus worshippers? King Anus the First, Daenerys.
Hey, you show respect to Larry Strong.
No, you can say what you want, by the way, obviously. I'm just punching back because people always get me for saying stuff weird. I have ADHD. I always say stuff weird. I don't try to do it on purpose, you guys. Anyways. So your villain of the week. I give you another minute to decide. You said it's hard not to give it to Otto. Are you going to give it to Otto, or do you have a curveball?
No, I'm actually going to give it to the crab feeder.
Okay. All right.
Again,
he was feeding people to crabs and nailing people with nails.
Yeah. Again, like, not a word of dialogue from him yet. Only 2 scenes, but what a 2 scenes, right? Like, just like the idea, like, you get across, like, the crab feeder, like, they're really laying in him, like, yeah, he's definitely deserving of that nickname.
Yeah, I thought that they, like I said, I like the way they built up the villain without the cheesy villain dialogue or anything. Is that Greyscale? It looks like it.
I don't know.
Is he that much of a villain that, like, he's commanding people, but he has Greyscale and just no one touches him or shares, like, cups with him and, like, gives him 12 feet of distance, but he's somehow a commander? Or is it, oh, you know what it probably is? It's like Shireen. It's the Greyscale that's stopped. Because there's different versions of Greyscale. There's, like, the mortal kind and the lesser kind, and it can stop. And the wildlings are saying, oh, it's only sleeping, it'll come back, and the maesters think it's done, blah, blah, blah. So it's probably that. I would say that it is Greyscale that has stopped. So he's no longer contagious, but he's all... It looked like Greyscale, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, if they go down that route that he has Greyscale, given the little bit of characterization we've seen from him, I could see that being something that he actually embraces. Like, yeah, I had Greyscale and I survived it. Like, I'm a survivor. And also, like, being like, yeah, to touch me is death. Like, he might wear that as, like just wear that as a badge of honor. And that's something, like, I see, like, when I first read the book, because Kragos Crabfeeder is also called the Prince Admiral, and the first impression I got is like, oh, that's a made up title. That's you making yourself feel more important than you really are, which I think is a thing we're going to see a lot with these Triarchy guys. It's like, oh, I'm Admiral, I'm Prince. Well, I'm Prince Admiral. It's like, I'm the captain. Like, yeah, I'm captain because I'm wearing a hat, like, type deal. But I could see Kragos, like, being like, no, like, I actually am deserving of my title, and this is one reason here.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. He could even be like second son of nobility in Essos that like isn't welcome at court because he's horribly disfigured, and so now he's the crab feeder. But he actually has titles or something. So, yeah. So which egg did Daemon take? He took the one that Rhaenyra picked out for Balin, Emma's son that died, and that was supposed to be. I liked. Okay. They've taken several chances. Cleo, you can't go on there because you bite the wire. You're going to cut my microphone. They're taking several chances to show Rhaenyra taking initiative. So Viserys is not asking enough questions about what's happening. And Rhaenyra is like, which egg did he take? You know? And then the dragon, you know, they tell her, oh, it's the one. So now it's like kind of personal to Rhaenyra. I thought that was a good writing touch. So that obviously foreshadowed that she was going to take some initiative to it. And it created a pretty emotional scene with her and Daemon. You know, she's like, oh, you took my brother's egg. So, like, I just love this Targaryen family shit, man. They're talking Velaryon to each other. They're arguing about dragon's eggs and, like, marriage customs. And, yeah, that scene was I mean, we've seen half of it in the previews, Tim, with Rhaenyra landing her dragon and the face-off, but it was still, like, rivetingly tense, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I loved it because everything from the letter to the reveal of which egg it was that Daemon stole, it's like Daemon just packing every possible insult he can by declaring himself the rightful heir, the Prince of Dragonstone.
The letter was great.
I'm marrying Mysaria. You're invited to my, and also like the quick. You're invited to my wedding, by the way. Like it's supposed to be some kind of great honor. Like, oh yeah, brother. By the way, you're invited to the wedding. It's in 2 days. It's like I was laughing my ass off at that. Like, it's just like, oh, Daemon, you're such a little shit. I love you.
It was delightful. I love the way that they did that. It's one of those little medieval touches, like, oh, we've received a letter, you know, a proclamation and all this. It's great. It felt good. It was a lot of good way to do compressed storytelling. And yeah, it reminded you a little bit of the Pink Letter as far as it's like extra insulting. It's not like all ragey like the Pink Letter, but it's definitely like a bomb. Like as soon as you remember when Jon read the Pink Letter in the Shield Hall, everything chaos erupted. And this was that kind of letter. Like, they read it in the small council, and it was just like, all the way around. Before we lose it, there's a comment in the chat up here. Kiss Cleo for me. Hey, Cleo. Cleo, give me a kiss, girl. Okay, there we go. A comment that it shows how weak Viserys was. I'm trying to find the person who said it, but it shows how weak Viserys was that he only considered 2 options to get married. I apologize, I can't find your name here, but it was a smart comment. You know, he only considered what was put in front of him. Corlys' daughter and Alicent, who Otto had put right under his nose. He didn't have a proactive plan to think about it. He didn't strategize with somebody that he considered loyal to figure out what would be the best match for him. Everything is brought to Viserys, and then he's like making choices. So that's a good way to show that he's a weak king, even though he's very strong, has a strong presence in a lot of scenes. So they're doing that pretty well. And
I do want to add, like, if there's another super chat, pick that up quick before I.
Yeah, there was so much more to Mysaria than I ever guessed there'd be. Yeah, I enjoyed the Mysaria stuff. Go ahead, Tim, and then we'll circle back to Mysaria.
Okay, so I was going to say, on that point, I think it juxtaposes nicely with Rhaenyra picking the replacement for the Kingsguard when she's presented with all of her options, and she does make like a better decision than Viserys, who only takes like look at 1 or 2. She's presented with multiple options, and she asks, like, do any of these guys have any kind of combat experience? And then that becomes the thing that really cements Criston Cole being afforded the spot. So it's like, yeah, he's not just being awarded the spot because he's handsome. He's being awarded the spot because he has true battle experience. And it actually, I loved hearing it too, because it kind of, it's something that I kind of had a feeling that they were going to do a Criston Cole's character that I had mentioned when we did episode 1, is felt like he's probably a product of the Dornish marches, which he is. The son of the steward of Dondarrion, which explains how he could be half Dornish but still be a Stormlander and be fighting against Dorne. So yeah, like battles in the Dornish marches, this is the only guy to have any kind of actual battle experience because he's on the border with Dorne, which hasn't been brought in the fold, so is still actively fighting against the rest of Westeros.
Yeah, great point, Tim. That's going in the breakdown video later this week. That was good. I like that a lot. Contrast Viserys to Rhaenyra. And I just pointed out Rhaenyra was asking better questions about the dragon egg theft than Viserys was. She obviously was proactive, suggesting, "Oh, we should use your dragons, father." But that's not exactly brilliant. That's like, "Oh, okay, Rhaenyra wants to use the dragons." This was more of an astute thing here. So yeah, the questioning of the Kingsguard, and it was cool that she like interrupted the list of, "Oh, he's won this and done that." Like, yeah. Does any of these have combat? So she's a little bit, she's 14 or 16 or whatever she's supposed to be. So she's a little hasty, and she's a little, if she was more seasoned, she might have conferred before just choosing. And she chose kind of impulsively. But it was a good choice, and her criteria was a better criteria than what was being used. Oh, well, these great houses, Beespace is important, and Mallister is very... And,
Yeah.
And then she also shut Otto up effectively by like, oh, well, shouldn't he have, men defending him who can actually defend him? Otto, you wouldn't want something bad to happen to the king, would you, Otto?
Yeah. Like, it may not, for Criston Cole to be named, it may not be the best choice overall, which we'll see later, but given the other options, it was the best of what she had presented to her. And sometimes sometimes you're in a situation where that's all you can do. All you can do is pick the best of what you have, and even that might still not be the best possible thing. And on to the point back, and relating back to the whole dragon egg, when it's revealed not only that Daemon had taken the egg that was meant for baby Balon, but also that it was an egg laid by Dreamfyre. Like that makes us think back to Dany's dragons too, because one of the implications is that the 3 eggs that Dany hatched were Dreamfyre eggs, because it was Dreamfyre was the dragon of Rhaenyra, and those were the ones that were stolen by Alyssa Farman. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, are they playing up? Is this supposed to be one of Dany's dragon eggs that maybe wasn't stolen, or is this like a 4th mystery egg, like from a different clutch? But it's definitely connecting us back to Dany's dragons by having that be Dreamfyre's egg. You're muted.
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. I went back and researched this. We actually don't know that Alyssa Farman's eggs that she stole were Dreamfyre's. She stole the eggs from the hatchery she didn't take them from Fair Isle, where it was only Dreamfyre. She took them from either Dragonstone or King's Landing. I forget which. I think it was Dragonstone. And that was not the only dragon there. Now, probably I think we're supposed to think about Dreamfyre, because we're told that Dreamfyre was laying eggs a lot. And Dreamfyre is Rhaenyra's dragon, and Alyssa was Rhaenyra's girlfriend. So, probably so. I just wanted just to be super clear. But yeah, I do think it's maybe meant to evoke Dany, and they could definitely play with that. They may, like, for example, they could talk about the eggs that were stolen. Last time. Oh, remember that time? That was during King Jaehaerys' reign when Alyssa Farman stole those dragon's eggs. So maybe that could come up, and they could build on that lore. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Who rides Dreamfyre? It was Princess Rhaena, who's no longer alive, and somebody that hasn't come into the story yet will ride Dreamfyre again. So Mysaria, there is definitely a lot more to that relationship. I liked that line, how she said, "I came to you for freedom." And it was like, not just freedom from like, being sold and stuff, but like from fear. So it's like, oh, that's what she loves about Daemon. Not necessarily the power, but like the ability to protect her and make her feel like someone can't come and take her away. So when all those people came and were threatening to take her away and take all their stuff away, It was like, this is the kind of thing I was looking to escape. And so she's kind of pointing the finger at Daemon for being irresponsible. And she's like, is it really safe to be next to you when you're living the way that you are? And that's like a pretty astute thing for Mysaria to think, because Mysaria is a survivor. She's not just like besotted over Daemon. She's trying to survive in the world, right? So she can judge Daemon's actions and be like, you're not keeping me safe. And it shows her power that she can sort of judge Daemon like that.
Yeah, like when she said that she wanted Daemon to liberate her, like, for one, like we think back to Dany and the liberation of slavery, and we also kind of think of the idea of going all the way back to when the Targaryens first came over, Aenar, the exile, and the idea, like that idea of him being possibly being an abolitionist and one of the anti-slaver dragon lords. And if it kind of lends credence to that if Mysaria looks at Daemon in sort of that same light as, like, you're supposed to be the anti-slavery Valyrian. I'm a slave because Mysaria's start is as a bed slave from Lys. And it's like looking to that liberation, like looking to the thing that Targaryens might be more recognized for over across the narrow sea.
Yep, they're definitely playing with a lot of themes of slavery and freedom throughout all the Valyrian stuff. You know, even Dany was talking about a dragon is not a slave. She's using dragons to free slaves. We're all dealing with how these royals are not free to do whatever they want because of the burdens of court life and stuff like that. So Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra takes this proactive move to show up to that showdown on Dragonstone. And I suspected that that's how it was going to happen, that she wasn't going to ask. And she was, because the camera panned over to her and she didn't say anything, but you could tell she was thinking, like, okay. And by that time, she had been suggesting things a couple times, had been shot down. So you could see that she had gotten to the point where, like, okay, I'm going to have to just do something because asking for permission isn't working. I'm never going to be the heir. Like that conversation with Rhaenys is telling her, be like, you're just a placeholder right now. They will set you aside as soon as they want to. You're not really an heir. You're not a powerful heir. She was challenging Rhaenyra's power. And so I think Rhaenyra took that to heart. And then throughout the episode, she's testing. And her ideas are getting shot down. Like, even when she had the dinner with her father, and it seems like she's making progress, he still cut her off when she tried to make a suggestion. So she finally got to the point, and this is good writing to set this up, where she's willing to go ahead and take initiative. So she's not like Daemon, where she's just willy-nilly doing whatever she wants. But she has a little bit of that Daemon energy where, like, okay, there comes a point when I'm going to assert myself. And she's also right that she has to assert herself. Like when Corlys was talking to Daemon and saying, oh, second sons, we've got to make our own way. Rhaenyra's much the same situation because she's a female heir and everyone's looking to replace her. So she does need to prove herself and establish her power if she wants anyone to treat her like she has power. They don't just give you power in the world, Tim.
Yeah, because when we look back at that conversation that she has with Rhaenys, all the way to the end of that conversation, Rhaenys is dismissive of her because Rhaenys says, like, that is the order of things.
That line, Gabe is like, oh, do you remind them when you fill their cups? That was devastating.
Yeah. Like when she responds, like, well, when I'm queen, I will build a new order. And Rhaenys is basically like, girl, you ain't gonna do shit. So like at the end, it's really pushes Rhaenyra. It's like, I gotta do something because they're all like, not even just my father's doubting me, not even just the council's doubting me, but Rhaenys, the queen who never was, another woman is doubting me. So it's like, this is like the make or break point. I gotta do something and I gotta take it into my own hands to do it.
And I like how the power flips back and forth. Like, you see Rhaenyra take the punch from Queen Rhaenys, and she kind of punches back, and she has a composed answer, but Rhaenys immediately punches back again, like, you don't know shit, let me tell you. And then she's like, well, when I'm queen, I will change the order of things. She's like, you're not going to be queen. So, like, she got torn down pretty hard in that conversation. And we should talk about Rhaenys too. But then that was fuel for her fire, so that in other conversations, she began to have more power. So it's interesting, from scene to scene, the agency is changing. You can see like, oh, Rhaenyra really doesn't have agency. It's like, oh, well, there she went and got some. She is a dragon lord. And Otto's like, take her to her chambers. And she's all like, careful not to disturb my dragon. He's protective. And she just walked by. So you can see there's not a clear answer to who's more powerful with Rhaenyra and Otto. Otto is kind of he's the voice of the king, but Rhaenyra is a dragon rider in the air. So you can see that is an active power struggle that's going on. What do you think about that one?
Like with Rhaenys, there's the definite Queen of Thorns energy that she's exuding, and yeah, with Otto, like Otto's taking Rhaenyra way too lightly, and because like Otto, I don't think Otto Otto doesn't know what it's like to be challenged by a woman. Like he's had challenges from Daemon, definitely.
True.
He gets challenges from Corlys, but he's used to his daughter, who's more submissive and plays along to his whims. So you can definitely tell he does not know how to deal with a woman like taking agency for herself and fighting back against him. Like it blindsides him.
I think you're right. And Alicent probably does too. Somebody pointed out that Alicent, in the sense that underestimates Rhaenyra. Alicent, by keeping it secret from Rhaenyra what she was doing with Viserys, she may have just burned one of her most important allies at court. Or potentially started a rift between her and Rhaenyra. So it's not just a friendship that Alicent should have been thinking about jeopardizing, but an powerful ally at court. So I think Rhaenyra is being underestimated, but that's because she didn't have a lot of power before this, and that's what she's trying to change in this episode. So very cool. So let's talk about Rhaenys. She was very cool drinking wine and checking her nails last week, and we had fun with that. And she dropped the whole like, yeah, none of these Knights of Summer, they're tourney knights, they don't know war. And it's cool that like, Rhaenyra picked up that same language, like, oh, these are tourney knights, But yeah, Rhaenys is okay. So there's a couple things to talk about. In general, Queen of Thorns vibes, yes, and not the. It's easy just to assume that she's going to be a hero and a perfect, virtuous character because she was this great candidate who was passed over. She rides a dragon. She's charismatic. She goes into battle. It's a lot to like about Rhaenys. But nobody's going to be perfect in this show. And like what you were saying, it's easy to put Corlys and Rhaenys on a pedestal, and they are better than some other characters for the most part. But it's like, yeah, that was a good line when Rhaenyra asked Rhaenys, she's like, well, does it bother you? Meaning to marry your 12-year-old daughter off to a middle-aged man, my father. And she's like, yeah, it does. But I know how the game is played. So it just kind of shows you like, yeah, Rhaenys, anyone can see that it's weird and awkward and a little bit slimy. And yes, modern lens and medieval politics, it's different or whatever. The culture normalizes things a lot. So if something happens a lot in your culture, then it doesn't seem the same as whatever. But it is what it is. Like, it's not. No one wants to marry their 12-year-old daughter off to a middle-aged man. Even in the medieval times, there's something uncomfortable about that. Even in medieval times, and so that line is instructive. It's like, yeah, Rhaenys isn't a whitewashed character. She's playing the Game of Thrones. She's doing the same thing as Otto is doing, in a sense. Like, we're sitting here roasting Otto for putting his daughter in front of the king. But, like, Rhaenys is just straight up doing it. She's not doing it sneakily, so it doesn't seem as nefarious, but she's still they're still using their children as political pawns who don't have agency or a chance to be a teenager or whatever. So, yeah. I mean, they're not perfect, are they, Tim?
No, it's
complex.
That's the thing. It's these are like, they're morally gray characters. They're gonna have their great moments, and they're gonna have their down moments. They're gonna have their good and the bad. You have to take the good with the bad. That's what you get with these morally gray characters. And sometimes they're gonna do things, even if you love them, they're gonna do things that you don't agree with, and they're gonna do things that you find loathsome. And it's something that we as an audience need to come to terms with, because it's a good way of starting us out with these things this early, because of when shit really starts to go down, it's gonna get brutal. Like, we're really, I can't say this enough, strap yourself in now, because eventually we're gonna go to Tumbleton. But also, as far as in the
we're going to learn about a little place called Tumbleton today, children. Oh, man.
I'm not going to go. That's far ahead in the
Then
future,
there's second Tumbleton, because why not? Why not run it back?
But even though it's that she's so young and Viserys is definitely older, because in the book, Laena's 12 and Viserys is 28. Now, he's definitely older here. A lot of that has to do with the actor Paddy Considine, because Paddy Considine is 48.
But it's not much different. It's the 12 part more than the 29 or 38 part.
But it definitely does happen, because, Walder Frey is in his 90s and is still creating children ugly as sin with his teen brides. So it's a rarity, but it does happen. But yeah, it's and Viserys is really uncomfortable with it too. We gotta we dunk on Viserys a lot for being a weak king, but I give him credit for being nah, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. Granted, Alicent's not that much older, so it's not like Alicent's any more kind of acceptable from a modern day lens, but it's not 12 that.
Yeah, Alicent looks more like an adult, but the bottom line is the agency and the thing is, it's George is critiquing the system more than anything. It's not Otto or Rhaenys or anybody that's really doing this. They didn't come up with the idea to sell their children to some other family to get it ahead. That's how marriage alliances is how the politics works. So George, why is George critiquing pseudo-medieval culture? Well, because that's the world that fantasy has always been set in. And George wrote A Song of Ice and Fire. He started in the 90s, okay, different world, but he started in the 90s basically to write the ultimate medieval fantasy. If Tolkien is the beginning of medieval fantasy, I feel like A Song of Ice and Fire is the end. I don't really think, Tim, that you could even write more medieval fantasy after this. There has to be a twist. Nobody does that. Nobody really just writes straightforward swords and sorcery medieval fantasy. I'm sure YA, there's some stuff, but if you're starting out now as an author, you see what's hot and what stuff's people are looking for a twist at this point. We've done the medieval fantasy up. So if George was going to dive into this, he's critiquing the genre. That's really what he's critiquing, is the fantasy genre. So everything inside of it, the glory of war, magic and prophecy, riding dragons, flaming swords, resurrection. But fantasy also, one of the pillars of it is this pseudo-medieval lifestyle and society. That's the word I was looking for. Society. We live in a society. So this is what he's doing. He's showing you a medieval-ish society where the children and the teenagers get treated as political tools, and he's showing what it does. One of the main things we're going to see with Rhaenyra as she gets older is that she has these two things pulling on her. She's a passionate person and she's young, so she falls in love with people. She has her own desires, but then eventually she gets in a political marriage and she has the responsibility of the kingdom on her. And George is showing us that humans aren't perfect. And when you put all this responsibility on them, sometimes they still just go and fuck somebody on a given Tuesday night and cause a whole bunch of problems. But that's what people do. And Daemon is, it's these family dramas that interrupt the idea that these people are supposed to be robots and only ever, carry out their duty. Now, I'm obviously team small folk all day, and I'm always harping on how the kings, their only job is to preserve the peace and all that. But the kings are also people. And so they're caught in this vice, and the kings and the queens and all the high lords, of duty and love. And of course, you think about Jon Snow and Ned and all the duty versus love and all that stuff. So, Jon goes too far, where he's like, oh, I've got to kill love. Love is the death of duty. I've just got to send all my friends away and just be super hard. And I think he went too far in that direction, and that led to his downfall. Separate conversation. But George is trying to show people in these grinders as a way of critiquing the society. So to come back to all this marriage and all this stuff, Emma Arryn's death, Viserys being in this position where he's got to do anything he can to try to get an heir. It takes a toll on everyone, because those knights that are dying out on the jousting field, they're dying in vain for a spectacle, but for those knights, they're doing it as a form of advancement. They're trying to win at tourney so that they can get elevated, so they can get a better marriage match, so they can, if they're a lower knight, they want to take service in a high lord's, ranks. Everybody's there to get ahead in society. So this is the critique, is like all this violence, all the horror, all the like uncomfortable things. These are all a product of a medieval society, and we're critiquing it because it's fantasy, and that's part of fantasy. So I hope I didn't go on too long there. Tim, what do you think of all that stuff? It just came out of my...
I agree, because I think it's also, I sort of see it as a critique of escapism sometimes, because some people go into fantasy for escapism. They want to get away from the harsh realities of the world. But even in George's fantasies, no, those harsh realities are still there. They're there. And they're in full force. And it really is it's unfair to place that much weight on the shoulders of children. Now, I'm, as well as being a Song of Ice and Fire fan, I'm also a big anime fan. And there's a joke oh, if you haven't saved the world at least once by age 12, are you even trying? And that's we can joke about that, but no, the reality is it is asking a lot of a child to do that, to force children to grow up this quickly. And it definitely is a critique of that. And we're seeing this full force with Rhaenyra. I'm flung into this on the whims of my father because he's mad at his brother. She recognizes that. And it's unfair to ask her of this.
I got so excited. I was like, Rhaenyra's been watching my videos. I made that exact point. I was like, he kind of made Rhaenyra the heir to spite Daemon. And she's like, you made me the heir to spite Daemon.
Yeah, I love that they made her conscious of it too. She's even without Rhaenys giving her those digs, Rhaenyra is self-aware of the situation. I'm heir because he literally has no one else, and because he's mad at Daemon. And then when this idea comes up of him remarrying, and Rhaenys says, the odds are good that he might have a son, and then your placeholder position is over with, and you go back to the sidelines. I like that they're actually making Rhaenyra cognizant of this. It's always going to be a thought in the back of her mind, so that when we do get to Viserys eventually having other children, it's going to be something that she'd already been considering.
And it makes sense because she got to an older age without being made the heir. So she was older and more cognizant of the idea that her father really wants a son. And then when he finally does make her the heir, it's how much can she trust it? So yeah, Rhaenys has now planted the seed in her mind that she's going to remarry. And I like how they just put it right out in the open. They're just no, he's going to marry someone else, and eventually he's going to have a son, and that son's going to replace you. Because they would have seen it coming. And it's going to illustrate Viserys' ostrichness. It's yeah, you should have seen this stuff coming. Anybody could have seen it coming. And that's what I said when I reviewed Rhaenyra and Viserys' actions. In the Alicent video, I was talking about all of them and preventing the war and who's to blame. And yeah, I like that they've brought it out and be like, yeah, no, you can see this coming. So Rhaenyra is already realizing she's in a fight for, her own position or whatever. So Minty pointed out earlier when Rhaenyra talks about, oh, I'm going to make a new system. It sounds like she's talking like Dany breaking the wheel. But if you notice, her dialogue actually exposes that she actually thinks that she's special. She's like, oh, well, they rejected you, Rhaenys, but I'm going to be different. Well, what's different about you? Rhaenys had a dragon. She was older than you. She had more political backing. She was a great candidate, and Viserys was a weak candidate. And she still got passed over. But Rhaenyra thinks she's different. So I wondered about this. When they gave her that line about making a new system, it's like, oh, they're making her revolutionary, whitewashing her character, blah, blah, blah. But I was saying, well, that'll be interesting to see how she starts off young and idealistic, as young people are, and then how that translates to an adult Rhaenyra. I need to run to the restroom. Can you respond to that and carry this stream, Tim, on your massive shoulders for about 60 seconds? Yes, you can. I'll be right back.
Okay. Going on that, when Rhaenyra has her moment with Rhaenys, where she... I'm trying to think of the line. I can't really remember it word for word, but it's when Rhaenyra reminds Rhaenys, well, I had these lords swear to me, like that's something that you never got. But we all know what words are. Words are wind. Rhaenyra's taking it on blind faith that these lords who swore fealty for her are gonna keep up those oaths. But it's like the things that so many lines that we get before from the original shows, like titles, so many oaths, they make you swear and swear. Not everyone is gonna have the wherewithal of the North, where oaths and the things you say matter, and that promises need to be kept. And Rhaenyra's gonna be in for a wake up call when that happens, when she finds out, like, oh, these oaths that they took aren't really binding, when people can change it on a whim, or when the one who made the oath passes and it moves on to his son, and he can say something like, well, that was something my dad said. I never signed that. I never signed off on that. Let me just see what's going on with the chat right now. Oh yeah, so Vhagar. I wanted when Dave comes back, because the conversation about Vhagar not being around, I found it interesting that Vhagar hasn't been claimed yet, because so Vhagar's supposedly out on some island out in the Narrow Sea. So I feel like that's going to be a bit of foreshadowing, because it sets up this idea that at some point during the Stepstones War, when Corlys and Daemon launched this personal war against them, that Vhagar could just randomly show up out of nowhere. And then it's going to be real interesting to see how Vhagar is claimed, because they're essentially a wild dragon at this point, almost.
Is this what happens when I let you run the stream for 60 friggin' seconds? You come back with some mind-blowing theory? Vhagar's going to show up in the middle of the battle in the Stepstones? What? This demands a Vhagar meme. I'm excited. Chat, give it up for Tim. Bringing the joy to the stream, Tim. You've just given me joy. Hang on, sorry. I need to find. Let me get my memes here. I did promise memes. I shared memes on social media, and I was like, "Come to the stream. I'll have more memes." So let's review what I did basically all day today. Which one did I show in the opening? I think it was.
It was the Werther's Originals one.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that you remembered that. So here we go. I can put it right here. Sorry, chat. So this is the one that I put out this morning. Has your brother found some? Hold on. Old Nan voice and Vhagar voice are different, and I gotta give me a sec. Hold on, let me find it.
You're muted again.
I know. I was practicing, Tim.
Oh.
My voice is actually a little on the. I'm just gonna do the visual memes today. My voice hurts too much. If I try to find the voice, I'm gonna ruin it for the rest of the stream. So there we go. There's for your consideration. That's my first meme. We've got. Oh yeah, this one was underappreciated on Twitter. It didn't get as many likes as the first one, but I thought it was good. This is from a YouTube comment.
Back to your cozy. Okay. Yeah. When I was a kid, I had a pet iguana growing up, so that's like the image I get of your cozy rock.
Well, that's all we've seen is she's taken off from this rock. So does she just live on a rock? And now, yeah, she literally does live on a rock in the ocean.
That's a heating rock.
So that was even better than I imagined. Here we go. Oh, that's the PSD I just opened. Shit. No, we don't want that. I can do that. Oh, this one. Yes. This is probably the best one. I incepted the meme. Instead of putting Vhagar in the meme, I put the girl from the meme. I'm especially proud of this.
Who was it? You who did the one of like Visenya, have we conquered Dorne yet? Because that one, I got a chuckle, but at the same time, it also made me sad. Type deal. It's like, oh, that's terrible.
No, that was not. That's how it started all this, and it was not mine. That's the one that inspired me. And then finally, I did this. You're gonna like this one, Tim, especially. So here's Vhagar's old Nan. They sure did, Tim. They sure did have hands and faces.
Oh.
Sorry, Siri tried to jump in on me there. Oh, I said it again. I said the word which cannot be said, which the knights of knee cannot hear. Okay, so there we go. What were we talking about? Oh yes, Vhagar living out is lonely. Come on, Grandma. Where is she? Grandma flew off. I hadn't seen her in months. She got lost. Vhagar's lost. She forgot how to get back to King's Landing, and she just found a cozy rock. She's just eating. There's good fish in there, and she's just,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like she's on some island in the Narrow Sea, but we're about to go to some islands in the Narrow Sea. So,
Tim,
yeah,
you're so right.
Yeah, it definitely opens up the opportunity. Like she literally could appear at any moment if she's just on some random. Maybe she's on Bloodstone. That'd be interesting.
Well, I don't know if we want to talk about. I don't know if everyone watched the little preview for next week, so I won't get too into it. But I mean, next week is going to be Stepstones action for sure. So yeah. And we've seen from the previews, we've seen a lot of pictures of dragons flying over water. We know for a fact that Sea Smoke, who is Laenor's dragon, that's Laena's brother, Sea Smoke looks like he's going to the Stepstones. We've seen a shot of Rhaenys' dragon flying with Sea Smoke overhead. So probably Rhaenys' dragon is going to be there as well. Beyond that, we don't really know. Caraxes, obviously. So we've got 3 dragons. We've got Caraxes, Meleys, and Sea Smoke, probably. But yeah,
Laenor is the older brother, correct?
Yes, he is
so
like a year older. Or
okay, so if Laena's 12, he's like 13 or 14 at this point. So
I think so. No, Laena's older. Because remember Rhaenys, when she was passed over, she was pregnant, and she was like, it might be a son, and then it was like, oh, but it was a daughter. So Laena's older. But they could switch that. They could switch that. So we might have, I mean, it's canon to have 12-year-olds riding dragons. So we might. Yeah. It'll be a little.
I'm just wondering if they'll make Laenor put Laenor at some kind of relative fighting age for the time to make it make sense that he would be there with his father.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what he looked like when we saw them together in the jousting box. Did the actor for Laenor look like he was supposed to be older than his sister? Laena's definitely older in the books, but yeah, they could switch that if they want. And someone says that they think they did switch it. So we'll see. We'll see. We're gonna get some. I think we're gonna get some Dragonfyre action next week. So I do have a Dragon Watch segment. So our dragons. Let's see. The only dragons we got was the Caraxes and Cyrax, the Mortal Kombat dragon. Those are that's the only dragons we got today, right?
Yeah, it's just Cyrax and Caraxes. Still no newbies, no Vhagar proper yet on screen.
And we covered the talk of Velaryon and Vhagar. So opening credits. A lot of people commented on that. Obviously, the song's the same. It's disappointing. Let's not harp on that too much. That feels like an HBO executive call. Be like, nope, people know the song. We want the song. You know, I'm like, okay. Yeah. That's what I suspect. But the music during the episodes are great, so I'm not going to complain about that. Ramin's awesome. But how about the visuals? So my interpretation, Tim, and I bet you've got an interpretation of this. To me, because it was blood that was running here, they're sort of showing you where the blood comes from, like the war, the bloodshed. And so you saw all the little turning items. They had various things like Rhaenyra's necklace or the crown. I think I saw a Kingsguard sigil. So it's kind of like all the elements that create the war and that fuel the bloodshed. Was that your read on it?
Yeah, because it's gonna be like a very there's no like downplaying it. When the war starts, it's gonna be a bloody, brutal affair, and it's gonna be everywhere. Like I mean, Riverlands, because Riverlands always get fucked in war. But like nobody's gonna go untouched. Like everyone's gonna be dragged into this knockdown, drag out fight. So it makes sense that we can see blood spreading across the entire realm.
Yeah, so that's totally, yeah, that's a good way to say it. And then there's also it looked kind of like Viserys' Valyrian city that the blood was running through. At least it looked, because it was all stone carved and it looked very vertical. I'd have to look at it again, but it looked to me kind of like it was supposed to be at least similar to his little city. So then there's a undertone of Valyrian blood magic, like, oh, the blood is running through the runnels. Like that's usually what we'd see on an altar, or like the satanic altar where there's a pentagram or some sort of shape, runes, and the blood, runs through the little things. And the Predator and Alien movie did that. Alien versus Predator. There's all kinds of stuff that does that. So I felt like there's definitely an undertone of sorcery and blood magic to the way that they did it, which makes sense. This is a show about Targaryens. So somebody's saying that it might be a family tree. It was hard for me to see. I was getting my, I think it might have been like pack and bong hits or something. I don't know that I have to study it in detail, and I'll give you some analysis on it. But it definitely felt like an altar. It reminded me of the Valyrian city, and it seemed like they were trying to show the elements of the story that lead to all this. So pretty cool. I thought it was definitely cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a rewatch. I mean, I am gonna be doing a rewatch on the episode later during the week, because I watched the Sunday shows I'm watching on the live premiere, obviously, for the show, but then I watched again later in the week with my mom. My mom actually really loved the original Game of Thrones, but she always had questions. She would always pause and be like, who is that again? Why are they important? And she asked me, she's like, can we watch it together? I'm like, yeah, but not on Sundays. I need to be able to, I can't stop and pause it and answer every one of your questions, Mom. I need to be able to pay attention. My mom doesn't really understand what I do with these after shows, but she's supportive. She's...
Tim, are you going to do that YouTube channel again? Sorry.
Yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. It's
Tim's mom is Vhagar, Canon. So yeah, okay. So enough people are saying that it looked like a family tree that I think there must be something to that. I guess it'll be obvious a day from now. And if you're rewatching the stream and everyone's already figured out exactly what it is, and I sound like an idiot because I'm all like, maybe it's this, then cut me some slack. We're here right after the episode. I got to go back and look at it too, but definitely very cool. And definitely, like I said, feeling like some blood magic, feeling like it's talking about the bloodshed that's to come. So, okay, let's see.
I'll be interested to see if I mean, this is talking way in the future, but like how the original Game of Thrones, how the intro would update as we saw in more and more places, we get new and new models. Like, I'm wondering as the seasons go by if they'll do a similar thing, and the intro will be changed up to have blood running across other places once we start seeing them on screen.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if they are adding stuff. If it's a family tree, then we should see Next Generation get added at some point. So we'll have to see. But yeah, look for me to break that one down for sure. So I want to do a Maester Watch segment. We already talked a little bit about it, but I think we've definitely, like I said, it may not be the grand Maester conspiracy, but there is no doubt that the Old Town factions are working together. And the Maester was really assertive in one scene where Viserys was like, oh, but what about Rhaenyra? And he's all like, who cares what she thinks? You're the king. You have to do this. And it's like, whoa, dude. That was a little aggressive there. So I think they're trying to show you that Melos is like only barely able to keep his scheming under wraps. Like he's supposed to be this passive Maester, but you could see him leaning in with his teeth every once in a while. That's my read on him. So they definitely want us to think about this conspiracy. It's only a matter of how far it goes. Yeah,
like he definitely seems to let his mask slip a bit too much. That's the impression I'm getting from him. One thing I want, because we didn't talk about it, is the scene with the maggots. Like we see.
Oh, Tim, by all means, Tim, Britt, let's do it.
I was actually. I was actually having some food while I was watching the episode. As soon as that scene came on, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to set that to the side." I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted by maggots. But still, when you see it, it's his pinky, and it's like, "Oh, that's the same. That's the finger that he cut. That's the pinky finger that he cut in the first episode." So it's like, "Oh, okay. So this is the second cut now that is getting infected." Like is every single one of his cuts from the throne also gonna get worse and worse like this? And then when we see it again, like his hand, his pinky finger is really bandaged up for like the rest of the episode. Every time you see his hand, like he's got that bound tight. So like these infections, these wounds are just getting worse and worse.
And I like that they've just sort of, this was a plot thread for Viserys in Fire and Blood. They've moved it up in the timeline, but that makes sense. We've only got 10 episodes in this first season. So, and if you notice, he cut his finger right when he exiled Daemon. So it's kind of like, dude, Viserys is a legitimate king, but dividing his family, that was what the Iron Throne did not like. So, yeah, there's a rot. There's a corruption in the land. This is very Arthurian here, very folkloric as far as the king and the land. Classic idea, the health of the king reflects the land. If the king is wounded, then the land is wounded. That's the whole thing with the Fisher King or the Grail King myth. So George loves that mythology, and I think it's just sort of set in to the back of his mind as world building. And that's where this Iron Throne stuff comes. So if the Iron Throne is cutting the king, that means that like the land isn't being ruled. Something is rotten in the kingdom. Something rotten in the state of Denmark, exactly. Something is rotten in the state of Driftmark or Dragonstone or wherever. So...
And because in episode 1, when he cuts his finger, it looks like a very minor cut. Yet here we are 6 months later, and now it's like the entire finger is rotted. So it just shows like the way things were back in those times. Like just the smallest little prick could be your death sentence, and that's what we're seeing here. And then of course that good old medieval healthcare, like let's shove your whole hand into a pile of maggots. That's going to take care of it.
So real quick, someone's mentioned Emergency Awesome. That is a good channel. I watched them. They already have a video breaking down the Easter eggs. That's because channels like Emergency Awesome get sent the thing early. That's how they do that. That's how they have a video that's ready like right after the stream. I would much rather be here with you guys, though, hanging out, feeling the love, and chopping it up, and benefiting from the wisdom of the crowd, because I always learn things from you guys here in the chat. So I'm not complaining. Like I said, I like that channel. I watch their videos too. But yeah, there's, every industry is like that. Of course, I shouldn't complain. I got invited to the premiere, so, the more you work your way up, the more love you get. Maybe HBO will send me videos one day of the episodes so I don't have to rip them with Filmora and a web browser and have the episodes in like poor quality. I would love to give you guys the HD footage, but they make it hard. So that was your peek behind the curtain. Let's shut the curtain again. But yeah, no, they're cool. They're a cool channel. I don't mind if you shout them out. I watch their stuff. So and he's funny. I like anybody that's funny. I can't stay mad at you. So let's see here. What do we want to talk about next? I'm feeling just a little unfocused today. I feel like I'm going to think of a bunch of things I wanted to say today. But what haven't we, chat? Help me out here. What have we not covered that we definitely need to cover? We could probably go back. We talked about Rhaenyra pretty good. How about Daemon? We haven't really talked about Daemon.
Yeah, Daemon and Corlys, I feel like we haven't.
We got a little Corlys, but yeah, let's talk about them. Do you think Daemon, what was his play there when he came out with the egg to confront Otto? Do you think he was really intending to provoke a fight, or do you think he always was intending on giving the egg back?
It's hard to say because he really, really hates Otto Hightower, but I don't think he would really want to provoke a war. I think he was just I think this was like a test to kind of see how far he could go. But then, just as Otto was blindsided by Rhaenyra, so too was Daemon blindsided by her showing up. And then when she does show up and she's has that talk with him in High Valyrian, cut the bullshit. I'm here. I'm the thing that's standing in your way. If you really, really want this, then do it. Let's end it now. And he lobs the egg at her and turns away because it's no, that never really was his intention. I mean, or it just shows the real love and affection he has for his niece. No matter what I do, it was never going to involve hurting you.
Yeah, I tend to think that Daemon was. If he's not going to give the egg back, he doesn't bring it out there. Mm-hmm. You don't bring it out. You don't want to have the egg in the middle of the sword fight. You come out to defend the castle and you keep the thing you want to protect in the castle. So I definitely think you're right that he was testing. I think the chat is right that he wanted Viserys to come. He was provoking his brother because he hadn't heard from his brother in a while. And so he shitposted him with that letter, kind of. He provoked him. And Otto put his finger on that too. Oh, is this what you have to do to get attention from your brother? It's ooh, yeah, he kind of called you out on that one. So yeah, I think he was always going to give the egg back. But he definitely likes to test the situation. He enjoys seeing people squirm and seeing what people are do and pushing them and seeing if they break. And I mean, he's always ready to throw down, but I don't think he was really trying to start a war. So yeah, he stole it and then wrote the letter. So he's kind of demonstrating his power, being I can get in the King's Landing and steal the dragon's egg, and I all this true Targaryen tradition, blah blah blah. So yeah, very much a test. And then he sends the letter because he wants to have a confrontation. So I think that's right.
Although I will say, even though he had no intention of hurting Rhaenyra, when he lobs that egg back to her, now if you're a believer in the whole dragon egg bomb theory, you might have just lobbed a live grenade,
That's how I felt about it when he tossed it. I was don't drop that thing.
Don't drop it.
Although I suspect it takes more than that to set them off. Otherwise, they would blow up accidentally sooner or later, and the baby kicks it too hard, and then I think you gotta do something special to do the dragon bomb. Hashtag hard home. Hashtag the doom. Yeah, just pushing Otto's buttons. He asked for his brother. Otto lied, and you see Strong's reaction to this also. What did Otto lie about? Do you know, Tim? I'm not sure. If you want to, Smeckless, tell me what.
Do you want to clarify that?
Yeah, I'm asking for a clarification. Let's see here. Yeah, I like the dragon sounds. Caraxes almost sounds like a machine starting up. There's a little bit of a whirring kind of a thing, which I kind of dig. I have to go back and listen again, but yeah, I like the Caraxes sounds. And let's see. So asking about Laena and Vhagar, well, I think we've already seen how they're changing the timeline to change for narrative tension. They're going to show us Laena claiming Vhagar, and they've already built up this idea that she's thinking about him out there in the ocean. Because if you're on Driftmark, that's the kind of thing you'd talk about. So, yeah, I think they're setting it up so that she has more to do. Like, a lot of these characters that are only mentioned a little bit that seem interesting, you've got to come up with things for them to do. So that's why we're going to have more dragons in the Stepstones. And I think we'll get, every dragon rider, they'll find stuff for these dragon riders to do, especially before the war. So that when the war starts, you already know, like, who rides what dragon and what kind of relationship they have with their dragon and what their dragon's like. They need to settle that up, so.
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay. So Gabe the Griffin, the lie. Otto said, Viserys would never come to this mummer's farce when Viserys wanted to come. That was the lie.
Oh, yeah.
But take it away.
I was just going to say, like, if we see Laena claiming Vhagar, maybe it could be like, it's kind of a setup for her own, like, Lyanna Mormont moment of seeing, the little girl claiming this giant dragon, just how we saw Mormont kill that whited giant in season 8.
Yeah, there's definitely like Arya, Lyanna Mormont energy with Rhaenyra, but she's a little older, and I really think they're doing a good job of making you put yourself in Rhaenyra's situation without whitewashing Rhaenyra. Like, she's obviously a focal point of the story, but they're not being like, she's the hero, so we've got to make her sympathetic by making her nice. They're not doing that, but they're drawing you into her perspective in other ways. And that, to me, again, is advanced story writing. They're not thinking like, sympathetic means good. No, sympathetic just means that you've been drawn into their circumstances. And watching Rhaenyra fight for power, it's like anybody that comes of age in the system has to do it. Like when Jaehaerys was 14 and Maegor died, he had to go through a regency for 2 years. And there was a lot of people that tried to take power and steer things in their own direction during that time, most notably the Lord Baratheon, Rhaegar. And he had to prove himself. He had to take independent moves and zig when people thought he would zag and sit on the throne and be like, I'm the king, bitch. Like, you have to do that. You have to show people your power. This is a warlord king, a barbarian king. He sits on a sword throne. He rules through dragon force. So if you don't prove that you can do that, then people are going to be testing you. So, yeah, watching Rhaenyra come of age and try to prove herself in this, it's really interesting, and I'm relating to it a lot.
Yeah, it's great because we're going to see her stumble. We're going to see her fall. She'll pick herself back up. She might fall again. She might stumble again, but she's going to keep picking herself back up, and we're going to see that along the way. But the thing is, like, we're going to see the mistakes that come with that because there's a steep learning curve when you're playing the Game of Thrones.
And that's what I was looking for, not to change the circumstances so that, Rhaenyra actually didn't make mistakes. They should help us understand why she made the choices that she did that lead to these consequences. And that's, I think, what they're setting up. And the same thing with Alicent. Like, you can't get around the fact that her only weapon at court is manipulation and, feminine wiles, whatever, quote unquote, the stuff that Sansa, the courtesy is her armor. That's what Alicent is working with. So there's no getting around it. Like, she comes across as duplicitous and manipulative, but they've also showed how she got in that nutshell, what kind of forces are pushing on her and against her. So she's not the kind of character to rebel against her father and the system around her. She's just trying to play the game as best she can. So, that is what it is.
But putting aside, like, okay, like putting aside the huge age difference, they are showing that Alicent does seem to at least have an affection for Viserys. Like, it doesn't seem like it's completely 100% just a political motive. And Viserys, on his part, he does seem, a bit smitten with her. Like, he definitely enjoys talking with her. So I think like it's not like he when he makes the decision that he does at the end, yeah, it's another snub to Corlys. But I think he definitely come to the conscious decision of not only is she a better match because she's older, but I already have this sort of repertoire with her because of these conversations, and I can actually say that unlike Laena, who I don't know at all, this girl I can at least say I've spent some time with, and I know I've grown to like.
I think it's really simple. I think it comes down to Viserys was lonely. And he wanted to marry somebody that he actually could see himself enjoying company with. So it's not so much that like he married Alicent because he was madly in love with her and Alicent got him wrapped around her finger and he's all besotted. It's not like that at all. He's kind of saying, if I'm going to choose a political marriage, I'm going to choose somebody that I can at least enjoy their company and that feels like a companion to me, because he's just really, really lonely. So yeah, Alicent and more so her dad preyed on Viserys' grief. Not only did they do that, but Otto isolated Daemon, or isolated Viserys from Daemon, so that it would be easier to do that. Both not only because Daemon was shrewd, but because Daemon was Viserys' family. So yeah, there's a lot of isolating Viserys so that they can manipulate him. There's a lot of that. So this chat is yeah, I mean, it's kind of, as I take the silver sticker off my brand new, I got this in the mail, Tim. Don't know if you heard it. Warriors won the title. Golden State Warriors from California, state of California basketball team. Stephen Curry, fabulous multiple champion, all-star MVP.
I'll just show mine then. For me, I'm wearing my Night of the Round shirt, but kind of embracing the roots of the channel that I know I'm on. It's a bunch of druids spinning a meteor.
Look at that. That looks like a moon that's way too close. Yeah, Ash the Green Man, if you would like to repeat, and I will just throw out that now. If there's anybody whose super chats I've missed, just tag me at David Lightbringer and repeat your question. And yes, Daemon seems lonely too. Absolutely, Daemon is lonely. It's almost like he missed his brother, and that's why he pulled this whole stunt, is like just to do something, So yeah. And yeah, it was a great reveal with Corlys and Daemon at the end. You don't know who Corlys is talking to, and then it's Daemon. That was definitely a surprise. You realize as the camera starts pulling out that he's not just talking to Rhaenys, it's a mystery person. So there was that few seconds of trying to guess who it was, and then it was Daemon. So that was cool.
I knew that it couldn't have been Rhaenys, because it's like, why would Corlys be telling Rhaenys? Surely she would know all of this already. They've been married for years. Like, it has to be someone else he's talking to.
I was like, this is a very info-dumpy monologue you're giving, Corlys. Like, but then, yeah, now it made more sense once it went over to Daemon, so. Some people knew it was Daemon the whole time because they're more clever than me, or maybe less stoned. So there you go. Let's see. I was looking for the repeat of a question. The portrayal of Alicent makes her my favorite so far. I love her depth. I hope they make Aegon II just as nuanced. As of now, she's my favorite. Yeah, it's a really interesting portrayal. Like I said, there's a lot of subtle acting. She's one of the ones I'm looking for the most on the rewatch. Just to look all the mannerisms and stuff to see where her motivations are in the given scene. Yeah, Daemon is lonely and insecure. I think that's right. Yeah, the way he tosses down his sword and collapses on Mysaria's shoulder after the confrontation. He's looking for somebody to be his rock. He's looking for stability. I think that's right. Do you think the eggs that Rhaenyra's son leaves? That's a little spoiler there. And no, as far as which ones are Dany's eggs are the ones that Alyssa Farman stole that ended up in Braavos. Those are definitely Dany's eggs. So, let's see here. Yeah, Otto knows with Daemon around, he can't manipulate his Viserys. Yeah, that's absolutely the point, yeah. Yeah, Dragonstone did look really good. Rye, I agree. Thank you, Owen. No question. Daemon just wants to be breastfed. Yeah, it's a loaded one there. Yeah, let me see. I'm going to check my email real quick just to see if, yeah, there's a couple of PayPals that trickled in. Okay. Sorry, personal note there. Thank you, Shadow Demon. Do you have any theories about what happens if a person refuses a dragon bond? I don't think you can. It's kind of a non sequitur. Like, you have to try to make the dragon bond. So, I don't know that you could refuse it. Yeah. Yeah, that's not a situation that ever happens, so it's not something you got to worry about. Mr. E. Knight says, bit off topic, have you thought about doing a Zoroastrian video for Mythic Concepts? I'm an anthropologist and a historian. Your Indian videos killed it. Oh, thanks, Mr. E. Knight. I won't... Yeah, I'm going to have to just get back to that channel after the season is over. I mean, this has really taken all my time. I have got several videos planned. Zoroastrianism is something I'm backing into through the Indo-Aryan and Indo-Iranian migration. So, yeah. And I don't know, Mystery Knight, have you watched my Vedic Origins of Dany and Drogon? Because I did get into the Persian Zoroastrian Azor Ahai connection there. So you should definitely check that out. Now, Tim, there's a good question I see in the chat. What did you think of the idea that Mysaria, instead of being pregnant, wasn't pregnant, and that it was something that Daemon made up to, like, make the letter more inflammatory?
Yeah, because I'm going to admit, like, when the scene was first going on, when Mysaria walked away, I was confused. And then when we get to the scene later, when they have their conversation, I was like, oh, so that was a lie. She wasn't pregnant at all. And I actually did start to think, I'm like, so is she never going to get pregnant? Like, is this a different way we're going? And because then she even drops that line too. Like, it's like, I would make sure that I would never be in the trappings of pregnancy. So it's going to be something to watch out for, whether she comes around on that, it becomes more receptive of carrying Daemon's child. Like, I don't know, because it definitely seems like something that they could change given the circumstances that they've set up in this episode.
I kind of like that, the way that they did it. And I like the idea that Mysaria is reluctant to have a kid, because then she loses her autonomy, and her whole life has been a struggle for autonomy. So that kind of makes sense to me. And then, let's see, there were some good comments here. I'm just looking at. Oh, Ash the Green Man, the super chat earlier, Tim, was complimenting our stream that we did about the Grey Waste, beyond the Five Forts.
Oh, yeah.
The first time I had you on the channel.
The first time you had me on the channel was the Crypts of Winterfell stream.
Oh, that's true. You're totally right.
My start.
You're right. That 5/4 stream was a banger though. That was a really good one. That one stands out in my mind.
That's the stuff that gave me the confidence to like try and bridge out on my own and start doing more of which I guess has become now the mainstay of my channel, which is the Lovecraft and A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading. Yeah, I'm reading a comment in the chat here. So she went to that confrontation on the bridge to back up Daemon, but he didn't even let her in on his plan. That's true. She didn't even know that he was bullshitting about her being pregnant. And she was just sitting there like, what? And then she left. So, like, it shows you kind of how reckless Daemon is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was not cool.
Like,
I almost got the feeling like Mysaria might be leaving him after this.
Yeah, it's like it's like a scene where if this was a sitcom, when he gets back, that would be the scene where she starts hitting him like, you told them we were going to get married? What is wrong with you? Like, that's kind of the vibe you get. But obviously we're not going to do slapstick in a show like this.
Because that puts her in danger. Like, if Daemon has a sex worker on the side, a paramour or whatever, like, whatever. But if he claims to marry her, then that makes her a target. And I think that's what she's concerned with, his safety. So she's like, you're putting a target on my back. You're not keeping me safe. Yeah, so let me, I need to go put Cockatoo to bed. So take the reins for just a second, Mr. Greywaste Tim. I will solo you and then put you back in the frame. There you go. I'll be right back. And feel free to just answer some questions in the chat there.
I need to catch up with the chat on my end. I think I got to scroll all the way bottom. Let's see some of your Robert Howard commentary. Oh, yeah, that's Conan's something that I've been meaning to get into on my own channel. There's a lot I want to do because I don't want to pigeonhole myself strictly into Lovecraft. I've done like Ambrose Bierce and Robert W. Chambers stuff on A Song of Ice and Fire and the King in Yellow stuff. But yeah, Conan's definitely one I want to check out more. Don't want to go into too much spoiler territory. So I appreciate the super chats that are coming in that are, asking about like Aegon the Second, Aegon the Third. I just, we're going to save those for later episodes when we get to them. Yeah, I haven't played any of the Conan video games. I'm not a big gamer. I play some things occasionally, but there's nothing that really catches my fancy on that. Even the Lovecraft stuff, because I know there's a lot of extended lore into like Cthulhu games, but they're just I stick more with the books on that kind of thing. But yeah, Conan's one I definitely want to look more into. So so sticking to this episode. So when we do finally see the pan out that Corlys had been talking to Daemon, one thing I note as like, okay, so I've been making the comments that Corlys and Daemon are going to be bros, which is the feel you get from reading the book. But in this sense, it seems like Corlys and Daemon's relationship is starting off with its own little bit of manipulation. Corlys has been snubbed now. Like, this is the third time he has been snubbed to his face. And the council still keeps downplaying the whole fiasco in the Stepstones with what the Triarchy is doing, because Corlys is now taking personal loss with these ships. So, like, to see that Corlys playing on Daemon's vulnerabilities as a means of starting his own personal war by feeding Daemon the idea of you can carve out your own kingdom by being king of the Stepstones. It goes to show that like that Corlys he definitely has like these power plays that's going to make him just as manipulative, or maybe not just as, but I don't think we can be any more sneakier than Otto Hightower. Like, Otto Hightower is, in my honest opinion, Otto Hightower is always going to be the worst. But Corlys is definitely going to go onto a level where he approaches that, and we definitely see this with him, just in the way that Otto is playing on Viserys' vulnerabilities, the loss of his wife, and the manipulation with his daughter. Corlys is doing the same thing with Daemon. I do think that Daemon eventually is going to realize this and come around on it. Like, Daemon's going to have the same agency and like consciousness that Rhaenyra has. But at the same time, I think he's also going to enjoy the ride along the way when the War of the Stepstones kicks off. Mute.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not sure how all this newfangled shit works, but I was thinking about, and I know I don't have my hat on, but this is Nimble Dick now, and I was thinking about how they've taken a ritual intended for sacrificing the deep ones, the squishers, and they've used it on humans. This is an abomination. Now, staking out The deep ones on the ocean so the crabs can eat them. This is an old crack claw ritual. We done been staking them squishers out on the beach. It's an abomination of their religious rites, you see. They come onto the shore to procreate, but instead, we torture them. We nail their squisher bodies down, and we torture them, and they burn up in the sun. The crabs eat them. Usually they eat the crabs, but they're not under the sea anymore, and so the crabs eat you. That's Patch Face right there. That was quote. So what they've done now is taken this ritual, this is punishment for the deep ones that we came up with, and they're using it on people. It's unheard of. And I was reflecting on that, Tim. So you tell me what you think. I'm gonna go get my hat. I'll be right back.
You gonna go grab the machete too? Got to take care of them squishers with you need a good machete. Give them a good chop. Man, when we get to the triarchy, it'd be interesting if someone mentioned squishers, or at least, even if it's just a story in passing, I would love if they actually brought that sort of lore into it.
It would be, that would be like the sea elephant in the room if they don't talk about the squishers. So I would say that they should if they're going down that way, because that's a hotbed of squisher activity. We all know that. So, now if y'all don't know how Nimble Dick roll, then you need to watch Nimble Dick Squisher Hunt, where I take y'all on a tour of all the conspiratorial hotbeds of squisher activity around the world. There's quite a few. They're basically everywhere. That's the conclusion. They are goddamn everywhere. They've got us surrounded. All continents, all seas, all rivers and bays and shores. And occasionally, an unholy idol up on the land. That's the worst. So, check out Nimble Dick Squisher Hunt. If you want to know the truth about that. So, okay. All right. I almost threw on the full gear, Tim, but I didn't want to keep you waiting that long. But I do feel like resurrecting the one known as Richard Crabb to talk about some of this. Maybe next week after we see Kragus, we'll get Nimble Dick on to break it down.
That's going to be one of my most favorite jokes now, is referring to Nimble Dick as Dr. Richard Crabb. I'm so happy. I'm so happy I made that joke. It's going to become part of if this is the if we're going into like the George R.R. Martin extended universe, like HBO's, attempts to compete with the Marvel universe, we can make our own personal, like, David Lightbringer extended universe. Dr. Richard Crabb. It's
getting there. Well, listen, I was thinking about it the other day. The old Nan is how it started. I got Robert Baratheon hanging out now and again, reading Rhaegar, who's actually Rhaegar Targaryen in disguise as reading Rhaegar because he's in hiding from Robert Baratheon. I got to keep those two separate. Now we have a Vhagar hanging around here, and Dick Crabb. So yeah, there's quite the collection of personalities that are living around here and in here. So great point, serious point, very serious point that's been raised a couple times. There's a lot to talk about. It's like, Centrium says, Viserys is duplicitous. He tells Rhaenyra he's taking another wife for the good of the realm, but then goes for Alicent, which is arguably worse for the realm. And what it is he chooses Alicent for his own reasons. It's very clear. No one's made a political argument for Alicent. Everyone made a political argument for Laena. And then what's the reason that we're led to believe he chose Alicent? Something more personal. He's comfortable with her. Maybe there was actually already a romance, but it's something having to do with Viserys is lonely and he likes Alicent. So these are personal. He is marrying for personal reasons. Even if it's not like passionate love, he's still marrying for his own. He's choosing his partner based on his personal desires, not on what's the best for the realm. Then he's forcing his brother to return Daemon to his political marriage, and he's about to force Rhaenyra into a political marriage. So it's very hypocritical, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's a complete, again, like, a lot of people are just getting blindsided this episode, because when he makes that announcement, it's another total blindside. Rhaenyra was expecting him to say Laena. That's the impression he was under. When he makes the announcement that I've decided to marry again, you see Corlys Velaryon kind of like, like sit up in his chair. He gets that little smirk because he's expecting the next word out of his mouth to be Laena. And then he says Alicent Hightower, and Corlys is like, is this a fucking joke? Like, you just insulted me again to my face. Like, you keep doing this. Like, what are you not getting?
So, Tim, do you follow basketball at all?
No, I don't.
So, LeBron James, you heard of him?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
He played for the Cleveland Cavs for 7 years. Then he got to the point where he was a free agent, and there was a lot of attention on him about where he would go. And there was a couple teams that were recruiting him, so everyone knew he was down to either Miami or Cleveland or like maybe one other team. Now, he grew up in Cleveland, hometown hero, never won a championship in Cleveland up to this point, but had gotten close. So there's a lot of pressure. Everybody wanted him to stay and win a championship for his hometown team. And what did he do? He went to Miami to team up with another superstar. Miami is kind of the opposite of Cleveland. Okay, for you international viewers. So to do this, Tim, he did the worst thing possible, which is he called a press conference and he made it a televised special. He called it The Decision, and he had a famous NBA interviewer press guy host the thing like it was an event made for TV for half an hour, and they interviewed and talked, and then at the very end, LeBron announces his decision in this big fanfare scripted thing. But everyone thought that he was going to stay in Cleveland because he was making such a big deal out of it, and then he says Miami, and Cleveland was gutted, just gutted. Now, he came back to Cleveland later in his career, won a title. It's all good. LeBron's done a lot of things, whatever. But, like, that's what this reminded me of, is that press conference that's called The Decision. No one's ever done anything like that again. And the next time LeBron switched teams, he did it, like, the quietest way possible. So it's, like, very well known as, like, bad PR move, The Decision. And that's what this was. Like, if you were going to not choose Laena, he shouldn't have done it in a public setting that embarrassed Corlys and forced Corlys to have to react to that emotionally on the spot. So he's either humiliated and swallows it or rages and looks out of control. He put Corlys in a very bad position by announcing it that way. And also, he didn't tell Rhaenyra either. So a lot of bad politics on Viserys' part. He's not a very good politician, is he?
No. Like, he's making terrible decisions. And it's like, did you... And you see it on Corlys' face, like, and even like when this happens, like, did you not think this through? Like, how did you envision in your head when you made this announcement? Like, did you think that everyone was going to be happy about it? Like no. Otto Hightower is the only person in this room who is happy about this. It's like, how, and the fact that you as king could not see that just goes to show, like where are your priorities? Like, what's really running through your head?
Well, to answer your question, Stephanie C comments, it's a bigger problem that Viserys is duplicitous out of cowardice rather than strategy. He's too afraid of upsetting people to assert power, and that's why he doesn't tell people's, because it would have been difficult or awkward. But he should have told Rhaenyra and Corlys specifically before making that announcement so that it wasn't a surprise. But you saw him, he was at the window looking, and then he was like, He made the decision, like, right then at the window, and then walked back and said that. So it was like, you can see that he's not doing this in a very calculated way, and he's not, he's catering to his own emotional weakness instead of doing the best strategic thing.
Yeah, he's flying by the seat of his pants while trying to be happy fun time king.
Yeah.
And
so,
it's like, dude, there's a time to be serious, and you're not being serious. You're never, it's like you're never being serious.
So just real quick, Emily's asking a question that it was, check out the beginning of the stream, Emily, but Viserys' infected wounds, it's like a Fisher King thing. When the king is wounded and infected, it means the land is wounded and infected. It means that the land is rotting. And the Iron Throne also, like, it judges leaders harshly. So if you don't do the right things, the throne cuts you. If you're an illegitimate leader, Viserys got cut when he sent Daemon away. That was a bad move. He was dividing the family, and Daemon was right that he was weak and needed him to protect him. And he sent him away, and so the throne cut him. So it's kind of like an oracle. It's very classic folklore mythology type thing. You're reading it. You're reading it right when you say, like, what's the meaning of it? Like, yes, it's a symbolic thing. So why didn't Viserys take 2 wives? In the classic Valyrian ways. That's actually not standard, only sometimes. Yeah. Taking 2 wives is something the faith wouldn't like. That would be very controversial. So he'd be causing more problems than fixing if he did that.
Yeah, we've already gone down that road with Maegor, like what happens when you try and take a second wife and it flies in the face of the faith.
I like that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, because we haven't. Again, we're only 2 episodes in, so we haven't seen like the High Septon or any of the faith and what their role in any of this is going to be yet.
So I like that. Yeah, that's true. They have not touched that at all, but they are introducing the idea with the choice to make Daemon. This is what I was going to ask you about. Actually taking a second wife. In the books, the closest we get to that is the idea that maybe he asked Viserys if he could marry Rhaenyra, but that sounds more like he was asking Viserys to set Rhea aside. So here, he's saying, I'm just going to take a second wife. I dig it. It's very, I am a dragon and I will do as I please of Daemon. And that is the kind of thing that will run you afoul of the faith. So we'll see how they bring the faith into it, but probably would be another faction of the Old Town powers, but they're leaning on the Maesters more than the Septons right now. So, but the Septas were there in the Emissene, so again, I would expect them to just be part of that whole Old Town faction.
Yeah, like when we think back to the books, we covered in the Daemon stream before last month. Like Daemon has asked Viserys to set aside the marriage twice, and in the context of this episode. Like in episode 1, there were comparisons to between that Otto was making, like Daemon's another Maegor. So when we go back to that letter with the idea of Daemon trying to cram it full of every possible insult he could, that would include the idea of like, oh, and I'm going to take a second wife because that's another Maegor comparison that's gonna stick in Otto's craw, and it's an insult to the faith. Like it really is Daemon, like. He's insulting crown, he's insulting faith, he's insulting country. He's covering every bit. Like, how many people can I piss off in one paragraph? And boy, did he succeed with that letter.
That's probably a great way to characterize it. He was, and of course we've seen with Euron and other characters that's a way that you can take power, is by defying norms and traditions. So that is what Daemon was making a move there with. So I like that for building up Daemon's character. That's a nice addition. The idea that he was trying to have 2 wives, so that was cool. Why didn't they use purple eyes? I think it just contacts, and I don't CGI. They just didn't feel like it. I miss the purple eyes too, but what can we say about it at this point? Somebody said maybe the throne has a bunch of lead in it, and so it's I don't think that's it. It's supposed to be symbolism. They're made of iron swords, so I don't think there should be lead. I'm not a smith. Is there going to be trace lead in iron swords from the Middle Ages? I don't think so. Maybe you do need to put in a couple of extra things other than just iron. A little bit of nickel is often in there, so maybe lead does get in there a little bit, but it's symbolism. It's not going to have a technical explanation like that, I don't think. But I guess, I take that back. The lead poisoning and stuff is kind of a big thing in the Middle Ages, isn't it? Like the gold, the jewelry that they had. Like the royals were poisoning their own blood really bad, but swears anew when I need them. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is something that George could... I take it back. It's not a silly idea. George could definitely borrow something like that from history, but I do think the throne and the king and the cutting the king is more of like a Fisher King symbolism type thing. But Maybe it's both. Maybe George is thinking of like a, actually, yeah, they were sitting on that throne and it was lead the whole time. It was, every time I cut them, that's why I poisoned them. I don't hate that, actually. I don't hate that. They drank from lead cups in the Middle Ages, someone says in all caps. All right. That's cool. I mean, no, it's not cool. It's a very not cool.
Like, I did have a thought. Okay, if I can make a comparison, like, between the Iron Throne and the Sea Stone chair. So, like, the Sea Stone chair being made of that oily black stone, the implication seems to be like that people who sit the Sea Stone chair are having the life sucked out of them. Like Balin Greyjoy, when he's described, it's like, this guy could be anywhere between 40 and 80. We don't know. Like, and it's like the Iron Throne, like, I don't think it's sucking the life, but there definitely is the stresses of being king that become associated. And you can think of like real world examples, like think of like presidents, when they take their first term versus when they leave. Like Barack Obama, like, dude looks like he aged 20 years and 8 when he left office, right?
Yeah.
And I think like the same applies to kings. Like Jaehaerys is in his 60s when he passes, but when you look at the art of Jaehaerys, like in his sickbed, and you read about like his physical and mental decline, you'd swear he was like in his 80s when he went. So I think there definitely is something about the throne. I mean, obviously, the throne is supposed to stress you out. It's meant to, because you're not supposed to sit comfortably in it. That's the whole point of it being made out of swords. But then there's also the psychological element, the stresses of being king and how much that weighs you down and how that's also going to affect you physically.
Absolutely. That was a great comparison to bring up the Sea Stone chair, and also think of the Weirwood thrones, because the Green Seers, they lay on that throne and their body is consumed by the trees. Like the roots pierce Bloodraven's body, and they're potentially drawing on him for nourishment. They're at least drawing his spirit into the trees, so they're feeding off of the body. Just, you know what I mean? So that's the same idea. Like, think about it as a sacrificial altar, just like we were talking about with the intro and the blood and all that. The throne is very much a sacrificial altar, and the king is the sacrifice. So, yeah, heavy is the head that holds the crown. All those kinds of themes, we've been harping on it a lot the last few weeks. It's very much something that George wants to write about. And the prophetic burden of Aegon's dream is the exact same thing, because it's just an increased level of responsibility for all the people. That's what Aegon's dream means, is like, you're responsible for preparing the world against this great threat. So it's just more of the same as far as the burden of the king. Yep. So it consumes you. And just to talk about oily black stone for a little bit, because that's our jam over here, Tim, is that it's easy to figure this out, because the Yin and Ashai are both magically toxic, and they're both made out of oily black stone, but in huge quantities. So the Sea Stone chair, it's a moderate 3 tons. I mean, it's only about 10 feet tall. You could couple strong guys with some back braces could move that thing on the weekend. But it's still a big hunk of nasty black stone. So I think it's logical that it would have some toxic effects, but that they'd be less. And I do agree that when you look at Balin's description, it could be coincidental, but it looks like Martin is trying to show us that he's aged a lot. So it's Theon's inner monologue about how much he's aged, essentially, is what we're talking about. So just so you know, I'm sorry I'm late. Where's Girl Nettles? Girl Nettles, she's trying to find Vhagar. She's on vacation on a sunny island somewhere. She heard Vhagar is out there in the ocean somewhere, and she's trying to find her. So we'll let you know if we track down Nanny Vhagar. You know how sometimes those Nans wander away. You got to go find them. You got to go. That's going to be the meme for the week. It's going to be stuff about like, yeah, Nan wandered away. Nettles is on vacation. Yeah, she'll be back. Yeah.
Like when we think like, because we had just talked earlier, like the other shows that are waiting in the wings. Like we could definitely get more oily Blackstone if we get like Nymeria ships, because we'll hopefully we'll see Yin. And with the YT show, I'm interested in seeing if they're going to do that as ancient YT like if we're gonna see some great Empire stuff, or if it's gonna be like modern day ET with the Orange Emperor and the Sorcerer Lord.
Yeah, we
like,
have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Be just so much material to cover if we get all that too.
Yep. Yeah. No. I'm. Thank you for missing Nettles. I love Nettles. I miss her too, and she does bring something very unique. But she'll be back next week. Yeah. So, she offered to try to do stream on vacation, but I shot that down. I was like, no, enjoy your vacation. So, she'll be back, and yeah. So we're just about to 2 hours. Oh, we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes. I had this thought to say this half an hour ago when it was 1:50. So yeah, last call for questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I don't think we need to go too much longer. We've hit most of the things. But yeah, last call for questions. And is there a silver alert out for Vhagar? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's every kind of alert. It makes it kind of nervous sailing out there in the narrow sea. There could be a Vhagar out there somewhere. So. Ooh, I just killed the attendance. I saw the attendance dip by like 90 people as soon as I said last call for questions. Everyone's like, all right, last call, time to go. That's what happens at the bar when they say last call. You're like, oh, okay, this is time. Yeah, a lead came from the makeup. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't. A bunch of people commented that. Yeah. So yeah, steel is just iron with extra carbon. Sometimes there's nickel, but yeah, not lead. Okay, cool. So. Oh, any idea what's in Otto's letter to Old Town? No, just information. It's just we're just supposed to know that Otto is constantly coordinating with Old Town. It's not anything specific, I don't think.
Yeah, like whatever Otto's sending in letters is more than likely just him keeping his brother like in the loop on what exactly is going down, and just having him at the ready, and like not only like that, but also keep the maesters at the ready, keep the septons at the ready, because all that's in Old Town. So it makes sense that like he wants his brother, who is the official lord of Old Town, to be very much aware of everything that's going on the Red Keep. Like I'm sure, I get the sense that Otto Hightower is sending letters to Old Town like every single day.
What was your... Yeah, exactly. I was joking after the first episode that every Otto scene would just end with him send a raven to Old Town. Just
the Daily Raven at Old Town.
So, what was your favorite scene of the week, Tim?
My favorite scene would be the letter read and everyone's reactions to it. Lord Beesbury only gets one line again this whole episode, and it's that pearl clutching, like, oh my stars, when they kind of read that letter. We're only gonna we'll have that man for a short time, but I hope they make the effort to give every bit of characterization to him, because he's just like he's so one note at the moment, yet still at the same time endearing because of his manner, just those little mannerisms.
I think it'll be like almost comedic when his moment comes, but we'll see. Somebody's raising the Celtigars. They talked about we're the only two Valyrian houses. Man, the Celtigars, they must be like some kind of bastard stepchild, because they never get any love. We don't have a description of any Celtigars. We don't even know if they have the Valyrian looks. They're just not very powerful or important house. So
they have a Valyrian steel axe. That's like their one big claim to fame, but we don't know anything about the actual family members.
So my scene of the week has to be the bridge showdown. I think that was the one I was the most on edge about. But if I take time to process it, I might come down to the Rhaenyra scene. The Rhaenyra scene was so like, it was the classic one where like, oh, you think you've seen the previews and you think you've seen too much of the show, but anything that you thought was going on in that scene, it's actually way different and way more complex. And the complexity that unfolded with Rhaenys in that scene and Rhaenyra was really interesting. It's really well done. Like I was talking about, the shift of agency and power. And you get to see, I just feel like they've done a good job of, like, if it was a video game and you were like trying to decide how powerful everyone was. Like Rhaenyra's got some power, but when she comes up against Rhaenys, her little thrusts are like swatted down really quick. But Otto's underestimated her, and she's put herself in a position where she's on her dragon and has more power, and she's able to swat down Otto pretty much like a fly. So I love how they're using agency in all these scenes and how it changes, and you can see the characters trying to manipulate things so that they have the upper hand in a given scene. So I dig all that. I like those two scenes a lot, both Rhaenyra scenes, and I think it was Rhaenyra's episode this week for sure. I put Criston on the cover because I saw the picture of Criston in his Kingsguard armor and surmised he was going to get made a Kingsguard, but he only had a quick minute. I did like, obviously we talked about Rhaenyra's shrewdness in choosing Sir Criston, and there's Rhaenys up in the watching from the window. That was cool. And Criston had the one line to Daemon, kind of amateur, is like, oh, how about you remember when I knocked you off your horse? And it's like, oh, good one. That was creative, but you did knock him off the horse. That's why Daemon's like, oh, okay, that was funny, good one. Look at baby make his first joke, baby's first insult. But yeah, so Criston, I thought he was going to have a bigger part. Maybe we'll see in weeks to come. I'm a fan of Sir Criston until he proves otherwise. And I do want to say again, guys, that just because we know Fire and Blood doesn't mean we know this show. Fire and Blood is unreliable, and this show is choosing and deviating. And sometimes what's happened, like with the Heir for a Day, it was pretty much just like it seemed. Yeah, Daemon seems like he said it. It may not have been exactly the way that it was portrayed, so Otto definitely bore the tale and made it as worse as possible, brought it right to the king in his grief and made sure he was very upset about it. We surmised that. But then the Mysaria thing was totally different. Oh, she actually wasn't pregnant. So you can't decide that Criston or anybody else is bad based on what they're going to do in the future. You really just have to let the show tell us the story. And right now, Criston is the people's champion. He's lowborn and he's risen, rags to not riches, but right now he's making something of himself in the world. He's won his position through valor and experience. Rhaenyra picked him not because he's handsome and she has a crush on him, or at least not totally, but because he actually has fighting experience. So he's that ugly ass warring that he did somewhere out in some lonely Dornish march one day has earned him this promotion. So he's earned what he's received through blood, sweat, and tears. So I like Criston as of now. It definitely has something to do with Fabian, the actor, or just being really Fabian, I think it is. But he's really charismatic and all the time. But yeah. That's my thought on Criston Cole. There's not a whole lot to say yet about him, but it was cool to see him there back, in his Kingsguard armor looking tough, You kind of feel the, final thought, Tim, you kind of feel the, that he's a little fish out of water. Like, oh, gosh, I'm here with all these important people, but I'm tough, You feel that.
Yeah. Okay, so going to Corlys's words to Daemon, when he says, we are the second sons and we have to carve out our own place in the world. Okay, that's true to an extent, but it still doesn't change the fact, Corlys, you're not a firstborn son. You were the heir to Driftmark. Daemon, yeah, Corlys is he's not a second son, I'm sorry, because he is the heir to Driftmark. Daemon is a second son, but he's also a prince. No, when we talk about who's really having to carve out their place in the world, it's Criston Cole. Because what is he? He's the son of a steward, of the steward of a marcher lord. So, not a major house, not even the heir to that minor house that he is, the son of a steward to a minor house that sits on the border of Dorne, and he himself happens to be Dornish. So it's who's true? Criston Cole is the one scratching and clawing to get to every position that he's gonna get. And that's what's gonna make like when he has his heel turn moment all the more bitter about it, because Criston Cole is someone that we should definitely have more sympathy and empathy for, more so than we have with Corlys and Daemon, because he really is like as close to a common born person as we're gonna get, having a major point in this story.
Preach it, Tim. Hashtag Team Smallfolk all day long, man. Like I said, I think they've done a great job of asking the questions of what would it be like. And with Criston Cole, like, yeah, he is a lowborn knight. And when you're not born into wealth, you're always going to feel kind of weird around rich people. And if you're not born into the nobility, it's always going to be a little weird, you know, for most people. So I think I'm feeling that with Criston. I'm feeling that awkwardness and the whole, like, I'm trying to get somewhere, but like, ooh, I didn't know if I want to get it this far, you know? But then at times we'll see, maybe he'll start relishing, you know, the access to power and all that, and it'll corrupt him. So we will see. We will see. I have a feeling that we will be judging him harshly at some point in the show, but I like the setup of the character. I feel something for him because of just what you said, his origins. So
yeah, like just a real quick point is, sometimes when you have like these rags to riches story, like sometimes you have people who get way too out of gear and they embrace the finer lifestyle. Then other times you have people that stay humble. And it's sort of like we can kind of see that if we compare Criston Cole to Dunk. Like Criston Cole might be one of these ones who gets a taste of like finer things later as he rises more and more prominence and it goes to his head. Whereas Dunk is our example of someone who, even when he becomes the Lord Commander, still stays into these like humble feelings that he has.
And he's constantly doubting every High Lord that he meets. Like, he never believes anyone. Dunk is very skeptical, even with Egg. Egg's like, wouldn't it be great if my egg hatched? And Dunk's like, yeah, not really, probably not. You know, like he's so yeah. We don't have Criston's inner monologue, but you have the feeling that like with his charm and good looks and this little flirting with Rhaenyra, like he's gonna get caught up in it and probably, you know, get tangled in some stuff that's gonna cause trouble for sure. But yeah, they're setting that up. Yeah, we did discuss Mysaria not being pregnant pretty thoroughly, so go back for that one. That's earlier. What was the other thing I wanted to talk about? Oh, darn. Darn. I had a smart thought, Tim. It was a good one. Maybe it'll come back to me. Oh, yes. This question from Janice. That's what it was. Hi, David. A new fan of your channel. Can you discuss the possible symbolism of Viserys constantly working on his model and how Alicent hands him a dragon? Well, look, I'm not trying to shame anybody for having hobbies. Hobbies are good. Art's good. But Viserys is the king, and seems like maybe he could spend more time doing king stuff than working on that damn city. So it's like he's, instead of building a kingdom, he's building a pretend kingdom. He likes to work on this because no one challenges him and bothers him, and it stays still. You know, that's kind of what I'm getting at. It also functions as showing that he's thinking about mystical things that are sort of not there and connected to the daily reality. But that's the first thing I get out of the symbolism of the city, because he's very evasive with his role as king. He's not telling people, he's not deciding, he's not proactively looking for another bride that isn't one of his two most powerful advisors' daughters. And he could be doing that stuff, but instead he's doing his little Derek Zoolander school for Valyrians who can't dream good, as I like to call it. So the symbolism of the broken dragon that Alicent had fixed. The dragon symbolizes the house and the person. Viserys is a broken man. The civil war breaks a house. So Alicent had the dragon mended. So at least at this point in the story, and I think it works for what's going on, it works as a symbolism that Viserys is deciphering. Like, think about the mess. Like, she's giving him, oh, I fixed your dragon. And then later he's like, who could fix my family? Who could bind up my family? Who could help me make a family again and fix my loneliness? It's Alicent, this woman who fixed my dragon and gave it to me. So that's how I took the symbolism of it, as foreshadowing that's supposed to be like, we're supposed to see that working on Viserys' psychology a little bit. And it's emblematic of where the relationship could potentially be going. Now, of course, ultimately, Alicent plays a big role in the civil war that tears Targaryen apart. So maybe, how does that seems to be a little bit of a conflict with the idea that she's healing this dragon or putting the dragon back together. Maybe it's going to show that there are times during the war when she's trying to play peacemaker, but is unable to. So maybe that piece will break again. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Tim, what did you make of the symbolism of it?
I was looking at more on a broader sense, like more past the individual Viserys, but as the realm as a whole. When the dragon breaks, like that's an obvious bad omen, and it took like a symbolism of the realm breaking. But when Alicent brings it back and the dragon has been mended, it's to show that yes, the realm will be broken and torn apart by this war, but it can also be mended. It can be put back together.
Yeah, that's maybe positive foreshadowing. I like that too. Was it Alicent who knocked the dragon over, or was it Viserys who knocked it over?
I think it was like Viserys accidentally dropped it.
Okay.
He was going to hand it to her, and he flubbed the pass.
Okay. I see.
I'll have to go back and rewatch, but I mean, I could be having confirmation bias, but I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I like that they're doing that kind of symbolism at least. I'll be nervous if they start doing cave painting type stuff again. Like that's the like the more cryptic kind of symbolism, but the obvious kind of thematic symbolism, that's just basic good storytelling. So that's cool. Let's see. All right, yeah, Blood Mages, that was dope. Not much to say about it, but check out God, I made so many videos in the week before. I got a bunch of Children of Valyria. That's what it was. It's the Prepare for House of the Dragon Children of Valyria episode. Yeah. All right, cool, guys. Well, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Like I said, we're at 2.5 hours here, 2:40. So thanks for holding it down with me this week, Tim. And we'll be back next week with Girl Nettles. And, we forgot to shout out the fundraiser again. Friggin' A. Well, we can do it now. So we like to support a good cause around here. Tim in particular is supporting this cause on behalf of a friend. Lots of people, what am I trying to say? The fight against cancer is a fight that we're all invested in. So, Tim, what's the organization that we have?
American Cancer Society.
American Cancer Society. So very not a niche, not a special thing, not a individual campaign. But we are donating a third of the revenue from tonight to the American Cancer Society. And if you would like to participate in our act of giving, the link is it in the description, or can I just pull it right up here? I mean, I think it's one of those things where you can just look it up, American Cancer Society. But let me see. Did you have it somewhere ready to go? Yeah, it's literally, you just look it up and it comes right up on the top of the list. Donate today. It's donate3.cancer.org. So I will drop it in the chat. But yeah, guys, if you feel like doing a little more giving tonight, then we can do that on behalf of. We're sort of sparing you like a heart-wrenching story, but there's how the battle is. So there's people out there fighting the good fight that need your support. So it means a lot to Tim especially, and people close to Tim, and to myself as well. So thanks a lot, guys. And so what? Let me just throw this question out before I wrap it up. What would you like to see me cover during the week? I'm kind of a loose cannon as far as what I'm covering during the week. Most YouTubers get right on the episode 1 breakdown video. But by doing this live stream, I'm already like way behind all those people. that are doing that. So the video that I did at the end of the week, where I did sort of the lit analysis breakdown, where I'm sort of critiquing the storytelling techniques, went over really well. So I might do that kind of breakdown towards the end of the week. But if there's anything specific that you'd like to see me cover from this week's episode, then let me know in the comments or in the chat right now, and I will consider it. So, yeah. I would rate this episode at least an 8 out of 10. There was nothing really wrong with it. Nothing I would criticize. It didn't have the fireworks quite of some of the other episodes, so you maybe call it a setup episode. But I really liked a lot of the scenes and the character building, and I continue to see more skillful storytelling. And Rhaenyra really was the kind of the stealing of the show this week. Rhaenyra and Corlys. So, yeah, I thought it was maybe 8.5 out of 10.
I'm gonna go with a 9 out of 10. Like I'm very gracious. I can't give every episode a 10 out of 10 because nothing's perfect. And this did feel like a lot of setup, a lot of moving things along, but it's definitely setting up for some real action, some real suspense. I'm very excited to see where we're going in the future, especially once we get the Stepstones war kicked off, and I feel like, again, like the setup of the crab feeder, like when he finally does speak, like I hope it plays into the scenes that we've been given with him so far. Like the worst thing I could see happening is to be given these scenes with the crab feeder that we got tonight, and then next week for him to talk and just all of that momentum die down because he's not.
So like, hey guys.
Because he's just like, some kind of mook.
No, I think they're doing it. I think it's pretty skilled. I mean, he really seems like Leatherface or something. Like he's totally a horror movie coded character with the disfigurement and the torture. So I think it'll be suitably dire when they take him on. I think they'll be. Yeah, it won't be an easy match for sure. So maybe a short video to explain what the squishers are. Well, you want Nimbledick's squisher hunt. That's the video you want. We went through the biology of the squisher organism from head to squisher covered toe. Yes, we did. So check that one out. More Vhagar memes you can expect, of course. Scraggerdagger liked this episode more than the first one. And yeah, I feel like the time skips are working fine. I'm fine with time skips and stuff, so those never challenge me. And all right, cool guys. Well, thanks for coming out. Thanks for those of you who donated. Yeah, I will see you during the week with videos, and of course, we'll see you again next Sunday after the show for more post-game, flying Ds, etc., etc. So there we go. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.